In the sky a short distance away, Thaniel suddenly stopped in his tracks and gazed at the 5 figures standing in the sky above the Imperial Palace, a look of shock coming over his features. "What's wrong, Grandmaster?" Thaniel currently had someone in his grasp. Dressed in golden robes with a crown on his head, it was the Fire Dragon King, Flit the 66th. "For half-deities." Thaniel's countenance was grave as he exclaimed, "For half-deities have appeared above the Imperial Palace and are currently besieging Menglay." "For half-deities? Besieging Menglay?" Flit the 66th was overjoyed. "In that case, that renegade Menglay must be doomed? Ha! The dragon god must be watching over us. He must be. Are you that happy at the thought of his death?" Thaniel let out an icy laugh. "Of course." A look of hatred came over Flit the 66th's face as he spat. "That renegade shows no respect for those above him and has risen in revolt, killing the emperor of us dragons, slaughtering the dragon half-deities, and bringing chaos to the dragon society. His sins are deep and great, and his wicked deeds unforgivable. How I wish I could drink his blood, eat his flesh, sleep on his hide, slash him 1,000,000 times, and sentence him to death through extreme torture to vent my anger. If he dies, I will surely drink for 3 days and 3 nights straight and hold national celebrations for half a year. Drink for 3 days and 3 nights straight and hold national celebrations for half a year?" Thaniel was livid. "If he dies, you're the first one I'm going to kill. Grandmaster. What do you mean by that?" The 4 half-deities were furious. Roiling divine power emanated from them and rushed toward Menglay from all directions, attempting to suppress him. Boom! The residual impact battered heavily against everyone's chests like a heavy hammer. It wasn't that bad for Fred, but Hudders and the others were out of luck. They were flattened onto the ground right away. At the sight, Pahaman quickly cast God's domain and shrouded everyone in it. Only then did Hudders and the others manage to struggle onto their feet. How terrifying! How absolutely terrifying! Is that what a deity is? Hudders and the others panted heavily as though they had just been to hell and back. "Kid, since it seems like you want to do this the hard way, don't blame me for being ruthless and heartless." Thackeray snorted and said, "Once we kill you, we'll monopolize your dragon god empire. Human kid, you're too full of yourself." The fallen titan's voice boomed as he glared viciously at Menglay, black mist billowing and roiling around him. "Since my young friend, Menglay, is so heartless, then don't blame me if I don't show you any consideration." The Chimera Queen spoke in a charming voice as a hologram of a gigantic monster hovered above her. "No one can stop the Dark Fairy's emergence." The Dark Fairy Empress' countenance was fierce and cold as she gripped her dagger. "These people that lead the life of a whore yet expect a monument to their chastity." Menglay scoffed. "So, you want to relieve me of my worries and troubles? Sure. Offer up your divine spirit origin energy and become my slaves. I'll reluctantly accept it. You're courting death. Cut the crap. Kill." The Dark Fairy Empress transformed into a cloud of black mist and instantly vanished from where she was. In less than 1/10,000th of a second, she had already charged all the way up to Menglay. The blood-red dagger gleamed coldly as it slashed across Menglay's throat at lightning-quick speed. "You're too slow, oh great Empress." Menglay's voice rang out from behind her. The Dark Fairy Empress looked over in horror, but all she could see was just an afterimage. "He's so fast." Astounded, the Dark Fairy Empress quickly transformed into a cloud of black mist again, went along with the momentum, and flew out 100 meters to evade Menglay's attack. A transformation into dark elements? Menglay was rather astonished. "You don't know about that, right?" The giggling Chimera Queen said, "Little Sister Nagaros is a dark elemental fairy, which is one of the 10 major elemental fairies. Elemental transformation is her innate special ability." A dark elemental fairy? Her innate special ability? Menglay licked his lips as he commented, "That's an outstanding ability. What a shame that it'll be mine in a second." System. How much does it cost to steal the Dark Fairy Empress innate special ability with brutal plunder? Ding! Dark Elemental Transformation is an innate special ability unique to the Dark Elemental Fairies and belongs to the class of high-grade innate special abilities. As the Dark Fairy Empress is a mid-level half-deity, the system replied coldly, the cost of stealing the innate special ability Dark Elemental Transformation is estimated at 100 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals. 100 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals? That's really not cheap. Meng Lei was secretly dumbfounded. However, he still instructed, steal it! Whoosh! His wealth instantly shrank by 100 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals. At the same time, the Dark Fairy Empress 100 meters away felt an inexplicable power coming over her. She blanked out for a moment as if she had just lost something, yet she couldn't pinpoint what exactly she had lost. Boom! At practically the same time, Meng Lei saw an infinite amount of dark elements surging out of her and flowing into every part of his body like a tidal wave. They blended into his nerves, his bones, his skin, and every single cell in his body. Meng Lei felt as if every cell, every inch of skin, and every single internal organ of his had soundlessly undergone some kind of change. As if Lady Luck had smiled upon him and given him a eureka moment, Meng Lei raised his right arm, which then transformed into a cloud of black mist, or to be more accurate, it had transformed into a cloud of pitch-black dark elements. Dark Elemental Transformation? As a Dark Elemental Fairy, the Dark Fairy Empress was naturally incredibly familiar with the innate special ability. A look of abject shock came over her visage as she stared at Meng Lei's right arm that had transformed into dark elements. Are you also a Dark Elemental Fairy? No, that's not right. You aren't one. I don't sense any aura that comes from a common origin from you. The Dark Fairy Empress shook her head hard. How exactly did you manage to do that? How did I manage to do it? Meng Lei examined his right arm. Then he replied, I guess I picked it up just by watching you. Picked it up just by watching me? The Dark Fairy Empress was close to breaking down while Thackeray and the other two half-deities' countenances turned grave. Disregarding how Meng Lei had actually mastered the Dark Elemental Transformation, just the ability alone was already extremely monstrous. The difficulty of killing Meng Lei hadn't increased by just a simple notch or two. To think Meng Lei really does have an ability like that. Fred and Dirk Norway exchanged a look, both seeing the astoundment in each other's eyes. Previously, they hadn't quite believed Meng Lei when he had told them that he had the ability to assimilate other bloodlines into himself. However, at this moment they were convinced. What was so unusual about assimilating bloodlines when he could even assimilate innate special abilities such as elemental transformations? O great Empress, to thank you for your innate special ability. Meng Lei flicked his fingers and said, I'll leave your body in one piece. It's still unclear just who's going to kill who. The Dark Fairy Empress said with a cold snort. He's faster than even me. Be careful, you guys. I hate those quick-footed fellows the most. Jumping up and down like monkeys. They are just so irritating. The fallen titan broke into a slight frown. Speed. Thackeray, the Golden Dragon Lion, sneered contemptuously. How dare he claim to be quick-footed in front of those from the Golden Dragon Lion clan? He's just making himself a laughingstock. All right, I'll show you what real speed is today. Whoosh! His contemptuous words were still echoing in the air when Thackeray vanished from where he was. By the time he reappeared, he was actually already strangely behind Meng Lei. It's not a bad thing for youngsters to show off their abilities, but those who overdo it easily offend others, and showing off too much easily makes one fall. Easily makes one fall? Meng Lei let out a scornful laugh. I'll make you fall flat on your face right away. How presumptuous! With a cold snort, Thackeray's right arm went smacking out forcefully. However, Meng Lei teleported and disappeared from sight right away. He's gone. Disbelief filled Thackeray. Hey, old fogey! Meng Lei's voice rang out behind him. Then his foot went flying out ruthlessly toward him. Bam! Thackeray was thrown out. Didn't you want to show me a thing or two about real speed, old fogey? Meng Lei followed him around like his shadow. He appeared behind Thackeray again and kicked him on the butt again before vanishing again. When he reappeared, he was in front of Thackeray again. "So, is this what your speed is like?" Meng Lei let out a contemptuous laugh. Then, his fist went flying out and landed squarely on Thackeray's abdomen. "Ugh!" Thackeray let out a cry of pain, the blow almost causing him to throw up his dinner from the night before. He doubled over like a shrimp as the veins on his forehead bulged against the surface of his skin in extreme pain. "Eats T, you old fogey." Meng Lei teleported behind Thackeray and sent a ruthless flying kick onto his butt. By this point, they were already very close to the ground, and so, Thackeray was in for a tragedy. His face was the first to land. It made intimate contact with the ground, smashing a humanoid-shaped hole into it and doing a true blue, falling flat on one's face. "That speed's all you got? You're nothing more than that." Meng Lei shook his head, and then he turned to the fallen titan, the Chimera Queen, and the Dark Fairy Empress. "I'll give the three of you a chance. Hand over your divine spirit origin energy and submit to me, and I won't hold your sin of disrespect against you. Otherwise, I won't show you any mercy. Kid, your speed is certainly fast enough, but killing me? Dream on." The fallen titan let out a derisive snort. He had absolute confidence in his strength. As a titan, he was born with Herculean strength and peerless defenses. Moreover, he was even a fallen titan that could connect to the faraway demon realm. With the ability to absorb the dark energy there for his own use, he could repair his body and revive continuously. Killing him? Dream on. If he really wanted to leave, no one could stop him. Is that so? Meng Lei's lip corners quirked upward as a blood-red machete appeared in his grip. The next moment, he appeared bizarrely beside the fallen titan and cleaved the machete at him. Splurt! The machete's swift and forceful blood-red glint underwent a dramatic change in size and transformed into a huge 400 meters long machete. It instantly slashed across the fallen titan's shoulder. With a splurt, the fallen titan's left arm was severed. Meng Lei teleported back to where he had been. "Immortal? Why don't you get a better understanding of my 400 meters long machete?" Ugh! Golden black blood sprayed about as a muffled grunt of pain escaped the fallen titan. However, his eyes were fixed on the blood-red machete in Meng Lei's hand. "That's the Abyss Blade Demon's companion machete. Who exactly are you?" "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I can take your worthless life any time I want," Meng Lei said dispassionately. "It's back to the same thing. Hand over your divine spirit origin energy and submit to me. Otherwise, I don't mind giving your head a taste of this 400 meters long machete. There are only titans that die in battle. Titans who surrender do not exist." The fallen titan let out a low roar. "Surrender? Over my dead body? What a real shame that is then." Meng Lei shook his head slightly and raised the blood-red machete, ready to end the fallen titan's life. It was at this point that Pahaman suddenly spoke up. "Can you give me his dead body after you kill him, master?" "What do you want his dead body for?" Meng Lei was rather puzzled. Fallen titans are dark creatures, which makes them absolutely wonderful materials for making undead knights. Pahaman licked his lips as he said, "If master can give me his dead body, I'll give you an undead titan with amazing prowess in combat in return." That sounds great." Meng Lei's eyes lit up. "Are you the evil dead soul's half-deity?" The fallen titan's eyes bore into Pahaman. His eyes were brimming with fury, as well as a hint of fear. If he died, then so be it. However, if he were to be placed on the experiment table by the wicked dead soul's half-deity after his death, he wouldn't be able to stand it. Kiki, it's been a very long time since I've crafted an undead knight. I wonder if I've become rusty in my skill." Pahaman licked his lips as he eyed the fallen titan up and down. His eyes filled with white-hot fervency. "Is it a little too extravagant of me to use a fallen titan of the half-deity level right on the first time I try to refamiliarize myself with the art? Should I summon a few skeletons for a little practice first?" The fallen titan was creeped out by how Pahaman was eyeing him like a toy. He roared, "Evil dead soul's half-deity, I'll never let you off if you dare toy with my body. Kiki, when you're dead, aren't you still going to be placed on the experiment table by me and be subjected to my creation process? The eager Pahaman couldn't wait. Hurry up and kill him, master. I can't quite wait anymore. Meng Lei nodded slightly. As you wish. Thank you, my noble master. Pahaman licked his lips. Attack! The Dark Fairy Empress and the Chimera Queen exchanged a look. They knew that the fallen Titan would meet with demise should they tarry any further. As such, they resolutely launched their attacks. Roar! With a roar from the Chimera Queen, the three-headed monster hologram above her opened its jaws wide and also let out an earth-shattering roar. Boom! Strong sound waves erupted into the surroundings, causing the space around them to crack and break into pieces and turn into a pitch-black hole. Sound wave attacks? What a shame! Meng Lei shook his head lightly. With just a stride forward, he was right behind the Chimera Queen, and he quietly pressed the blood-red machete against her neck. Your Majesty, why do you tempt fate so? Meng Lei's eyes were full of pity. The Chimera Queen trembled lightly as a hint of horror flashed past her face. However, it quickly passed, and she giggled coquettishly as she replied, My sound waves travel at a speed 100 times faster than regular sound waves, yet you were still able to dodge them. My young friend Meng Lei's speed is truly one that's rarely seen and unprecedented. This isn't speed, but teleportation. With an aloof smile, Meng Lei said, Teleportation, when matched with this machete, is enough to take all of your lives. Therefore, just submit to me. None of you have even a sliver of a chance to make a comeback. Teleportation. A huge jolt went through the Chimera Queen, while looks of astonishment also surfaced on the fallen Titan and Dark Fairy Empress faces. Although they had never once come into contact with a special ability like teleportation before, just the sound of the name alone was enough to let them know that it was an extremely fearsome spatial special ability. Movement in a split second. Who would be able to defend themselves against it? God's domain. At this point, a furious bellow rang out. Thackeray, the golden dragon lion, had appeared before Meng Lei at some point. His countenance was savage and ferocious, as if he was going to gobble him up. How dare you humiliate me like that, kid? I'm going to rip you into a million pieces. Divine technique, dimensional blade. Several pitch-black dimensional blades suddenly appeared and cleaved toward Meng Lei, who was being trapped by God's domain, at lightning-quick speed. I told you, it's useless. Meng Lei shook his head lightly and vanished from where he was without any regard for Thackeray's God's domain, easily evading the dimensional blade's attacks. While he had certainly evaded the attacks, the Chimera Queen was in for a tragedy, however. The incomparably sharp dimensional blades landed on her and instantly sundered her defenses, carving a few deep gashes into her. Had her divine body not been sufficiently hardy, the Chimera Queen would definitely have been chopped into a few pieces. Even so, blood was still spurting furiously everywhere like a cascading waterfall. Thackeray! The Chimera Queen glared furiously at Thackeray, her countenance savage and her eyes almost spitting flames. Thackeray felt his breathing stop slightly for a moment before he hastily said, That was an accident. Chimera Queen! An accident. An accident? I'll get even with you later. The Chimera Queen was livid. However, she knew that it wasn't the time to fuss over such matters at the moment. She quickly brought out a crystal core that emanated and gave off a rich aura of vitality, swallowed it, and began to heal the wounds on herself. As expected of the Chimera Queen, Meng Lei clicked his tongue in wonder as he remarked, Had it been an ordinary dragon half-deity, they would have been chopped into a few pieces. We chimeras may not possess magic talent as great as the other dragon breeds, but when it comes to physical defense, even the golden colossal dragons and earth dragons cannot hope to compare to us. A hint of triumph surfaced on the Chimera Queen's visage. However, she immediately froze the very next second because Meng Lei's machete had pressed itself against her neck again at some point. The dimensional blades couldn't cut you apart, but I wonder if this knife of mine can? Meng Lei chuckled softly. Would you like to give it a try, Chimera Queen? What do you want? The Chimera Queen barked a question at Meng Lei as a bead of cold sweat formed on her forehead. She could feel the aura of death looming about her. I'll ask one last time, will you submit? How can I submit to you, a human, when I'm the Chimera Queen? I've given you a chance. It's a shame that you didn't cherish it. In that case, you can't hold it against me anymore. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. With a flick of his wrist, the blood-red machete drew across the Chimera Queen's snowy white neck, forming a line of blood. The Chimera Queen stared at Meng Lei in disbelief, and then she plummeted straight onto the ground. Then she turned into an enormous creature that looked dragon-like yet wasn't one, goat-like yet wasn't one, snake-like yet wasn't one, and lion-like yet wasn't one. She smashed a gigantic pit into the plaza as her head rolled off to the side, unable to rest in peace. It was the Chimera Queen's true form. You're the only three remaining now. Meng Lei turned to the remaining three half-deities, his demeanor as if his act of taking the Chimera Queen's life was something so trivial that it wasn't even worth mentioning. YUVE actually killed Ambrose? A hint of terror flashed across the three half-deities' eyes as they stared at the Chimera Queen's carcass. Meng Lei's gaze flickered back and forth among the three before it finally settled on Thackeray. You're the most hypocritical as well as the most detestable among the three. I'll pick you then. The sound of that made Thackeray's hair stand on end, and he instantly retreated 1,000 meters to the back with a burst of speed. However, before he could even stop, Meng Lei followed him like a shadow and quietly appeared behind him. Flee? Do you think you can successfully flee? A calm Meng Lei said, from the moment you stepped into the Imperial Palace, your fate has been destined. Splurt. Blood spurted like a towering pillar, and another great head shot into the sky as a headless dead body crashed onto the ground, turning into a gigantic lion with golden dragon scales all over its body, dragon wings on its back, and dragon horns on its head, except it was now a headless lion. Silence. The whole place was filled with dead silence. Everyone watched them in a daze, unable to stop themselves from gasping. They were too stunned for words. Two half-deities have died just like that? Fred murmured to himself, completely astounded. While he had certainly been astounded by how Meng Lei had wiped out the dragon half-deities, ultimately, no one had seen it happening. However, having personally witnessed Meng Lei slaughtering two half-deities this time, that feeling of astoundment had become even stronger. Kakik. As expected, Master is truly terrifyingly strong. Pohaman licked his lips. A smile adorned his visage, but inwardly, his feelings of astoundment were no less than anyone else. This was also his first time seeing Meng Lei fight, not to mention the first time seeing him kill a half-deity, too. His clean and efficient moves where killing a half-deity was no different from slaughtering livestock. He was insanely strong. Grandmaster, have two half-deities died just like that? A short distance away from the Imperial Palace was Flit the 66th, who had been scared witless. He had been clamoring for Meng Lei's death previously, but only endless fear remained in him now. He's become even more fearsome than before. Thaniel had a complex look on his face as he remarked. And that machete too. It must be a real divine weapon. The hammer, the spear, the divine core, the divine pig's carcass, and now the machete. One after another, not a single one of those items was something that a half-deity could possibly get their hands on. Thaniel simply couldn't understand. Just where had Meng Lei gotten that many true gods artifacts from? These two dead bodies are yours now, Pohaman. Meng Lei turned to Pohaman and said, I hope to be able to witness an undead chimera and an undead golden dragon lion's power soon. I won't let Master down. With a wave, the cackling Pohaman stored the chimera and golden dragon lion carcasses away. Then, he turned to the remaining fallen titan and dark fairy empress, the meaning behind his actions self-evident. We can't do this. Let's retreat. With a low shout, the dark fairy empress shot into the distance with a flash. When was she supposed to flee if not now? Oh great empress! Where do you think you're going? Meng Lei stepped forward and obstructed her way. You can't stop me. With a cold snort, the dark fairy empress decided to cast her innate special ability, dark elemental transformation. However, something that left her in disbelief happened. She actually couldn't cast her innate special ability, which she had usually been able to easily cast. It was just like, she had suddenly lost the ability. How is it? You can't use it, can you? Meng Lei burst into laughter. Unable to transform into the elements, you won't be able to escape from me. You'd better just obediently surrender and offer up your neck. What exactly have you done to me? The Dark Fairy Empress glared furiously at Meng Lei, going somewhat crazy and even more hysterical. Can't you tell? Meng Lei's laughter stopped as he replied, I've stolen your ability, of course. Stolen my ability? The Dark Fairy Empress' countenance changed drastically as she said, Could it be that just now? Bingo! Unfortunately, you don't get any prizes. Then, Meng Lei quietly transformed into a cloud of dark elements and circled around the Dark Fairy Empress. Angry? Going crazy? Breaking down? So, then that's right. Come on. Come on. Bite me if you can. Ha ha ha, you can't, can you? Nanny nanny boo boo. See if I don't drive you up the wall. Her. The Dark Fairy Empress was gnashing her teeth so hard that one could hear grinding sounds. Her full and well-endowed chest rose and fell dramatically, the look in her eyes as if she wanted to eat someone. Yet, there was simply nothing she could do. There was nothing she could do about Meng Lei at all. One must admit that elemental transformation was really quite a crazy skill. It allowed one to become immune to both physical attacks and magic attacks, thereby becoming almost immortal. It was ridiculously crazy. Just you wait, human. The Dark Fairy Empress took a deep breath. Someday, I will pay back everything that happened today in full and interest. Then, a dark magic circle appeared under the Dark Fairy Empress' feet, and the next moment, she vanished into thin air. She's vanished. Meng Lei was greatly astonished. Master, that's a teleportation magic circle. Pahaman reminded him. If I'm not wrong, it's probably the Dark Mother Tree that saved her. The Dark Mother Tree? A look of confusion came over Meng Lei's features. The Dark Mother Tree is the Dark Fairies' divine tree, as well as their mother tree. Legend goes that not only can the Dark Mother Tree give birth to Dark Fairies, but they also possess the ability to teleport. Pahaman explained, the Dark Fairy Empress has likely been teleported away by the Dark Mother Tree. I see. Realization dawned upon Meng Lei. Then he scoffed. She may have run, but her base still remains, so where can she run to? How wise, master! The spider goddess.it was gentle, light, and comfortable. Yet Bubbles the fallen titan couldn't feel comfortable. He looked at the two headless bodies, and only fear was left in his heart. The Chimera Queen and the Golden Dragon Lion. They died just like this. The Empress of the Dark Fairies also fled. 2 deaths and 1 escape. Present, only he was left. What should he do? Run? He couldn't possibly escape. Fight? He couldn't win the fight. He didn't want to die. Was he to surrender? No. I'm the noble fallen titan. Even if I were to die, were to be slashed into 1,000 pieces, or were to jump down from here, I would never surrender. Bubbles. Meng Lei looked over. I surrender. The fallen titan hurriedly knelt on one knee, lowered his noble head, and then took the initiative to release his divine spirit origin energy, without the least bit of hesitation. Meng Lei froze for a moment. Bubbles, you made a wise decision. Thank you, my noble master. The fallen titan stood up and looked at Meng Lei with a complicated look in his eyes. He knew that from then onward, his life and death were in Meng Lei's hands. If Meng Lei wanted him to live, he would live. If Meng Lei wanted him to die, he would die. He would have no other chance to regain his freedom. Big guy, you disappoint me too much. Pahaman was displeased. As a noble fallen titan, how can you surrender? Shouldn't you fight to your death and never surrender? Evil dead souls half-deity. Stay away from Bubbles. The fallen titan stared at Pahaman with disdain. Otherwise, I will break your head with 1 hit. Ift. I was joking. Pahaman gave the fallen titan's huge fist a look and let an ugly peal of laughter. Since you surrendered, we are allies. Bubbles, welcome. Humph. Now you're talking. The fallen titan snorted softly, and the look on his face softened. Meng Lei smiled slightly. Bubbles, do you know where the Golden Dragonlion clan is? Master, the Golden Dragonlion clan is situated at the Golden Archipelago, with more than 5,000 islands big and small, all territories of the Golden Dragonlion clan. Bubbles replied in a respectful voice. Golden Archipelago. Meng Lei nodded slightly. You know the way, right? The Golden Archipelago is situated in the east of endless oceans. One can reach the Golden Archipelago by flying almost 30,000 kilometers east from the Blue Dragon Kingdom. Bubbles said very respectfully, I used to travel across the Golden Archipelago 300 years ago. That was also when I got to know Thackeray. It's easy since you know the way. Meng Lei nodded his head satisfactorily. Later, you may accompany me to the underground world, and then to the Sunset Ranges, and finally to the Golden Archipelago. Master, this might not work. Bubbles was a bit hesitant. What's wrong? Meng Lei's frowned slightly. The underground world is extremely complex, with all kinds of evil deities. These evil deities are vicious, evil, and extremely xenophobic. If we were to get into the underground, we would very likely get attacked by them. Bubbles explained, for example, the spider goddess worshipped by the dark fairy race is a very evil and vicious evil deity. If you went to give Nagaros trouble, the spider goddess wouldn't sit and watch. The spider goddess? Meng Lei raised his eyebrows. Is she a true god or a half-deity? The spider goddess has yet to become a true god, but she is a very ancient half-deity, almost as ancient as the 4 great true gods. Bubbles explained, I heard that if not for the 4 true gods, the dragon god, the titan spiritual god, the beast god, and the fairy goddess joining forces to expel her to the underground world, the spider goddess would have become a true god long ago. Despite this, the spider goddess is still the most mysterious and unpredictable half-deity. It is better if you don't offend her, master. The spider goddess. Meng Lei's eyes squinted. Now that you mentioned this, I am suddenly wondering whether the Empress of the Dark Fairies' appearance this time was instructed by the spider goddess. This is very possible. Bubbles nodded slightly. As the most ancient half-deity, the spider goddess is only the slightest bit from the position of a true god. One may say that it needs the power of faith more than any other half-deity. All the half-deities of the dragon race have been massacred, and this territory so rich with the power of faith is vacated. How can the spider goddess leave it alone? That means, even if I don't go and give the spider goddess trouble, it will come to me. Meng Lei smiled. If this is the case, I may as well go right to its door and kill it in case it comes to give me trouble in the future. But Bubbles was a bit hesitant. There's no but. The dragon god empire is mine. No one else should covet it. Meng Lei waved a hand. Not to mention an out-of-style old piece of trash like the spider goddess. It should prolong its pitiful life staying in the underground world, instead of coming to provoke me. Upon hearing this, Bubbles smiled bitterly, not even knowing what to say. Master even looks down upon the spider goddess. Master, when are you intending to leave? Pohaman asked respectfully. Today will do, Meng Lei said after giving it some thought. In that case, I will wish Master great success. Pohaman smiled and said, May everything go as you wish, Master. At that moment, Thanil came flying with Flit the 66th. Emma Master Meng Lei. Flit the 66th looked at Meng Lei and tried hard to force out a smile. Your Majesty. This is His Majesty. Fred, Dirk Norway, Hutters, and others all looked over with anxiety and confusion on their faces. Your Majesty, we meet again. Meng Lei looked at the Fire Dragon King, his heart filled with complex feelings. The first time he had met the Fire Dragon King, he had been high up there, accompanied by more than 100 Saint Domain warriors, all domineering, and he himself a mere 9th-grade Saint Domain magician. Not long had passed, and Flit the 66th had already become a small and insignificant person. The changes in the world's fortunes were indeed unpredictable. It's my honor to see Master Meng Lei. Flit the 66th was a bit fearful. Your Majesty, I told you to go to the new Dragon Island. Why didn't you go? Meng Lei frowned. Not only did you not go, but you also gathered my family and friends. What are your intentions? To beg for mercy? Or to threaten me? No, no. That's not the case. Cold sweat emerged on the forehead of Flit the 66th. Master Meng Lei, I'll head to the new Dragon Island right away. I'll go to the new Dragon Island right now. What a pity. I've already given you a chance, but you didn't seize it. Meng Lei waved his hand and said coldly, Bubbles, you haven't had breakfast yet, right? He's yours. Thanks, Master. Bubbles was overjoyed and couldn't help but lick his tongue, as a hint of cruelty showed on his face. As a Titan, it had a diverse diet, but colossal dragons were definitely the most delicious dish. Nonetheless, even though he was a half-deity, he hadn't dared to eat a colossal dragon and risk offending the dragon race. Thus, he had not eaten dragon meat for a long time. Now that he could improve his diet once, how could Bubbles not feel joyful? Master Meng Lei, you can't do this. Flit the 66th was terrified, but Meng Lei didn't even look at him, so he had to beg Thaniel. Grandmaster, save me, you are a half-deity. So long as you ask for a favor on my behalf, it is sure to save me. Ask for a favor? Thaniel smiled bitterly. I am just a ride. What the hell of an influence do I have? Asking me to ask a favor for you? You should just go and die. I don't want to see him. Meng Lei waved a hand. Yes, master. Bubbles laughed viciously, and with a casual grab, he burst Flit the 66's head and stored his corpse into the spatial ring. He would keep it first so that he could eat it slowly later. Sigh. Fred closed his eyes slowly and didn't dare to look anymore. From the beginning till the end, he hadn't begged for mercy. Fred was certain that Meng Lei's intention to kill the colossal dragons was never firmer, and begging for mercy would be completely useless. His Majesty died just like this? Dirk Norway, Fatty Heart, Hutters, and others drew a cold breath, and a chill coursed through their spines. All along, the Fire Dragon King was at a high-up, unreachable position in their minds. Yet just a moment ago, and right in front of them, the high-up, unreachable king's head directly burst. This was something they wouldn't dare picturing even in their dreams in the past. Yet it just so happened. This is who Meng Lei is right now. This is who old bro is right now. For the first time, Fatty Heart, Hutters, Jonah, and others truly witnessed Meng Lei's splendor. The so-called king, so-called sovereign of a country, was nothing at all in Meng Lei's eyes and could be destroyed with the slightest effort. Puhaman Thaniel. Right when the crowd was wildly imagining, Meng Lei spoke. After I leave, the two of you should manage the Empire's affairs properly. I hope to hear good news from you after I return. We'll definitely live up to your expectations, Master. Puhaman and Thaniel replied respectfully. And my friends, do also look after them properly. Don't neglect them. Meng Lei pointed at Fred, Hutters, and the others and gave special instructions. Yes, Master. Master, the underground world is intricate and complex, pretty much like a maze. Without anyone to guide your way, you can easily get lost. It's very troublesome even for us, half-deities. Guiding the way? This is easy. The duo took only 2 hours to travel across the Dragon God Empire at breakneck speed and arrived at the magical beast forest. Little Gold, can you hear me? Meng Lei contacted Little Gold through the spiritual contract. Boss! Little Gold was joyful and happy. It's me. I'm here in the underground world. Really? Awesome. Little Gold was very happy. Boss, where are you? I'll go and find you right away. Magical Beast Forest. Wait for me. I'll be there right away. After cutting off the connection, Meng Lei smiled and said, My friend will be here very soon. With it guiding the way, we won't worry about getting lost. Friend. Bubbles was puzzled. Come, eat something first. Meng Lei took out the corpse of the Tricanon pig and started barbecuing. He had nothing to do anyway. Eating more divine pig's meat could supplement him with extra nourishment. This was also the first time Bubbles saw the corpse of a divine beast, so he was utterly shocked. But when the roasted pork released a tempting aroma, All the shock turned into desire and anticipation. Let's eat. Master, I can eat it? Why not? Thanks, Master. Bubbles devoured like a wolf, almost eating his own tongue. Menglay also ate. Bubbles, I heard you once raped the former Titan Queen? Master, this is slandering. Bubbles rebutted. Aisley was my first love. It's Hasius who was the third wheel. Menglay froze for a moment. Say more. The despicable Hasius desired Aisley's beauty and forced Aisley to marry him, making us break up forcefully. Out of desperation, I had to secretly meet Aisley. Hasius eventually found out about us, so he ordered to have Aisley executed. Out of rage, I chose rebellion. Unfortunately, I was alone with weak forces, and the rebellion was suppressed. I was dismembered, with my limbs and head thrown out into the wild. Back then, I was in very deep despair, but the fire of revenge made me fall at the final moment. Subconsciously, I sensed the fallen plane, the demon realm, far away. By absorbing the demon realm's dark energy, I was revived and became a fallen titan. You must love Aisley very much? Of course. She was the love of my life. The moment that she was executed, my heart died with her. Avenging her became the driving force for me to live on. I swore that I had to behead Hasius with my own hands to avenge her. Is Hasius still alive? He is. He also became a half-deity. I see. Boss. At the sight of Menglay, Little Gold pounced forward in surprise and joy, rubbing its head against Menglay intimately. It's been a while, Little Gold. Menglay stroked Little Gold on the head, a joyful smile coming over his face too. Bubbles. Let me introduce my friend to you. This is Little Gold. Little Gold. This is Bubbles. Hello. Hello. The Titan and the ant greeted each other, both somewhat astonished at the other's identity. A golden god-slaying ant? A fallen titan? Why would Master/Boss have a friend like that? A smiling Menglay asked, Little Gold, you should know where the Dark Fairies are, right? The Dark Fairies? Little Gold nodded and replied, Of course I do. They're a juggernaut of the underground world. They reign over the underground world's most fertile and vastest region, and are the overlord of the underground world. It's great that you know of them. Bring me to the Dark Fairies, replied a cheerful Menglay. What are you going to the Dark Fairies for, boss? If it's possible, it's better that you don't. Little Gold hastily said, The Dark Fairies are exceptionally wicked and are extremely hostile to outsiders. Any creature that dares approach them will be killed, so you'd better... Don't worry, Little Gold. I, your boss, am very strong now, you know. A smiling Menglay comforted Little Gold and said, The Dark Fairies are nothing to me. Don't worry, and just bring me there. This? All right, but do be careful, boss. With Little Gold leading the way, Menglay and Bubbles made their way there extraordinarily quick. An hour later, they had successfully left the bloodthirsty Iron Crystal Ants' territory and come to the Doghead Kobolds' territory. Boss, up ahead is the Doghead Kobold tribe's territory. Let's move with care. Aren't the Doghead Kobolds beast people? Why are they here in the underground world? Master, Doghead Kobolds have a frighteningly high reproduction rate. Not only do they usually give birth to quite a few pups in a single litter, but they can even produce a few litters a year. This has caused overwhelming numbers among the Doghead Kobolds. In truth, this situation isn't limited to just the Doghead Kobolds. Many clans in the Beast People Empire face the same situation. For example, the Pighead Kobolds, the Rabbithead Kobolds, the Cat People, and the Goat People, all of them are races with astonishingly high reproduction rates. Yet the Beast People Empire just had to be located at the far northern wastelands where resources are scarce, and there's a shortage of food. For the sake of survival, many of the Beast People clans would seek a way out. Some head to the northernmost ice fields, some choose to venture into the ocean, some enter the deep mountains and old forests, and some burrow right into the underground world. After so many years, there are now tracks of beast people all over Heaven's Vault continent. Therefore, it isn't surprising that they'd appear underground. I see, so that's how it is? They engaged in idle chat along the way, following which Meng Lei subsequently saw the legendary dog-head kobolds. Indeed, they were just like what their name implied. They had a dog head but a human's body, which was covered in thick fur. On top of that, they didn't live in houses but caves instead. What an amazing race! Meng Lei released his divine cognition into the surroundings and enveloped the dog-head kobolds within. Since he was here, he couldn't possibly return empty-handed. He had to bring a little something back with him after all. However, what gave Meng Lei a mental breakdown was that this particular dog-head kobold tribe was actually stone broke. They didn't even have a decent treasury. After much difficulty, he finally found a cave that was used to store treasures, only to discover that the inside was actually filled with all sorts of animal bones, jerky, and magic cores. There were no gold coins or laws of nature origin crystals at all. These dog-head kobolds are poorer than even me. Meng Lei couldn't help but curse under his breath. Upon hearing what he'd said, Bubbles remarked with a laugh. There's more to it than meets the eye, master. This particular dog-head kobold tribe, as well as several other races in the vicinity, are worshippers of a black dragon. Dragons are avaricious in nature, and that black dragon is no exception. In fact, it goes a step even further. It has plundered most of its worshippers' clan's treasures. Meng Lei's eyes lit up at the sound of that. In other words, that black dragon must be extremely wealthy? Is there anyone among the dragons that's poor? Bubbles replied affirmatively. I've interacted with that black dragon before. That fellow's the most avaricious colossal dragon that I've ever met. It solicits toll fees even for mere passage through its territory. It practically can't get any greedier. Avarice is great. Avarice is fantastic. It's only when one is avaricious that they would gain ample assets. Meng Lei licked his lips as he said, Let's go. We'll look for that greedy black dragon now. Under Bubbles' lead, they arrived at the black dragon's den in no time. Even from a great distance off, they could already hear a series of thunderous snores. Go get him, Bubbles. Yes, master. Bubbles nodded lightly and released a bit of his aura. The snoring in the den came to a sudden stop, and then a lazy voice rang out. Passage through here will cost you 100 laws of nature origin crystals. 100 laws of nature origin crystals? That's really greedy. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Bubbles replied with a smile. It wouldn't have become known as the most avaricious half-deity of the underground world otherwise. Then he said, Is that how you should be treating an old friend, Baxter? Eh? A soft sound of surprise later. A huge dragon head poked out of the den. So it's you, the rapist. You'll have to leave behind 1,000 laws of nature origin crystals as a toll before you can pass. Black lines filled Bubbles' forehead as he retorted. Do you believe me when I say that I'll beat you up again if you malign me any further, Baxter? Have you forgotten where you are again, Bubbles? Baxter, the black dragon, let out a dull, heavy snort as he scoffed. This is the underground world, not your fallen sea. It's no place for you to act so impudently. Oh, he's pretty arrogant. Meng Lei couldn't help but chuckle softly. It can't be helped. Although these wicked underground deities are all fierce and perverse in nature, they form an extremely united front when facing outsiders. A resigned Bubbles said, I've fought that black dragon a few times before. Although it's no match for me, that guy would always summon his friends as helping hands. So, you've suffered at his hands a few times before? That's great, then. We can avenge both new and old grudges at the same time. Meng Lei snickered as he rubbed his fists against each other in anticipation. I don't believe we can't take down those despicable underground half-deities if we join hands. If we can subdue them and empty out their dens at the same time, then that would be even better. Isn't that a little too risky, master? Bubbles was somewhat weak-kneed at the sound of that. The vastness of the underground world is something that's beyond your imagination. There are so many evil deities here that you can't even count them on both hands. The more the better. Only then would things be interesting. Meng Lei licked his lips and flew straight out. This is a robbery. This is a robbery. Gold coins, laws of nature origin crystals, divine cores and treasures. Hand them all over. Roar! Where did that little bug come from? The black dragon opened its jaws and sprayed out a wave of dragon breath to melt and corrode Meng Lei. But with a flash, Meng Lei had arrived right in front of it. Baxter, right? Meng Lei gave him a slight smile and said, I've taken a fancy to your den. Please scram immediately, and I'll spare your little life, albeit reluctantly. I'm going to eat you, you worm. Utterly enraged, the black dragon opened its cavernous jaws and bit right at him. Behave! Meng Lei gave a light snort as the hammer of destruction appeared in his grip. Aiming it right at the black dragon's nose bridge, he swung it down forcefully, with the power of a half-deity's high-grade divine body, and coupled with the hammer of destruction's fearsome destructiveness. A hole was smashed right into the black dragon's nose bridge with a snap. Intense, severe pain assaulted his nerves, and the black dragon cried out in pain. Come on out! Meng Lei grabbed the black dragon by the horns. Violent, raging power erupted, and he dragged the black dragon right out of its den before hurling it into the far distance. Is Master's physical strength that terrifying? Bubbles was dumbfounded. The black dragon, Baxter, was 6,000 feet long and astonishingly heavy, yet Meng Lei could pick it up in one go. Just how physically strong must he be in order to do that? As for Little Gold, it had long since been scared witless. In the instant it saw the black dragon, it was so frightened that it was shaking like a leaf and could barely suppress its fear. After all, that was a half-deity. However, what it found even more shocking and horrifying was that its boss had actually thrown the black dragon out. How could that be? Kakaka, the den is mine now. Meng Lei let out a few strange cackles before diving into the den like a gust of wind. What the F***CK? So many gold coins. So many laws of nature origin crystals. I've struck gold. I've struck gold this time. Collect, collect, collect. After a period of frenzied collection, his wealth spiked to 1.74 million laws of nature origin crystals. It had gone through a big round of fattening again. That black dragon's assets are indeed ample. Only then did Meng Lei, who was in a fantastic mood, begin to collect the other treasures there leisurely. The remaining treasures were mostly magic cores, magic crystals, and glittering jewels. If not, then they were various grand, lavish ornaments and art pieces from the human world. It was evident that this was one black dragon that knew how to enjoy life. What's this? Meng Lei spied a stone the color of blackish blood lying in an inconspicuous corner of the den. It was pitch black in color, yet it shone with a blood-red glow. The system's icy voice suddenly rang out at this point. Ding! Dropped item discovered. Will you pick it up? Yes, pick it up. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline. Will you assimilate it? The divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline? Meng Lei immediately contacted Dodola and asked, Dodola, do you know of the divine Netherworld Phoenix? It's a dark elemental divine beast which hails from hell. It possesses the innate special ability, rise from the ashes, and can be said to be immortal. The Netherworld divine fire unique to it is fairly terrifying and can even burn a higher deity dead. The divine Netherworld Phoenix is also an extremely fearsome race in hell, and the status they hold there is similar to that of the fallen angels of the demon realm. It's just that it's extremely difficult for a divine Netherworld Phoenix to ascend, so it needs to rise from the ashes 9 times in its lifetime before it can mature into the adult stage. I see. Take a look at this, said Meng Lei as he brought out the black stone. Dodola inspected the blackish-red stone closely. After a long while, it finally said, If I'm not mistaken, this should be a divine Netherworld Phoenix's Phoenix Marrow. A Phoenix Marrow? Startled, Meng Lei asked, What the heck is that? When a divine Netherworld Phoenix fails in its rebirth, it leaves behind something known as a Phoenix Marrow, within which contains its blood essence and leftover life essence post-burning. Dodola explained, This thing is a great source of nourishment for the divine Netherworld Phoenixes, but it's absolutely useless to you. You can just toss it. Got it. After exiting the Tower of Time, Meng Lei promptly instructed, System, Assimilate the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline. Ding. Assimilating the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline now. Ding. Assimilation unsuccessful. Ding. Primeval bloodline activation condition has been triggered. Will you activate your primeval bloodline? Primeval bloodline? What's that? Never mind. I'll just activate it first. Whoosh. His wealth instantly shrank by 100 laws of nature origin crystals. Ding. Primeval bloodline activation successful. Host. Menglay race. Human, primeval bloodline. Primordial human, 10%. Assimilated bloodline. God-slaying rat, 100%. Others. Some increase. But what was a primordial human? Were they this body's ancestors? Aren't you going to explain, system? There was no response from the system. Left with no other choice, Menglay could only approach Dodola. The primordial humans? Where did you hear of them from? Dodola was greatly surprised. From some random place, Menglay made up some ridiculous answer on the spot. The primordial humans are a legendary race that has died out over the long course of time. Most typical people wouldn't know of them. Dodola side-eyed Menglay with an expression that said, "Go on with your stories. I'm watching." "So, you know of the primordial humans?" Menglay quickly asked. "Since you do, then hurry up and tell me about them. Stop jabbering so much. There's not a single truth out of your mouth all the time." Dodola grumbled before it explained. "Speaking of primordial humans, we have to go way back into the past. It's said that during the very beginning of the vast universe, only a single existential plane had been born." A single existential plane? Menglay was startled to hear that. "Yes, just a single existential plane." Dodola said, "That existential plane is the legendary world Genesis plane. It's said that the first living beings came into existence after a long period of time and evolution after the birth of the world Genesis plane. They are also the very first batch of living beings in the vast universe. These beings were incomparably powerful. They either had fearsome divine bodies, or controlled powerful special abilities, or were born with the innate ability to control supreme laws of nature. Strong, fearsome, supreme. Every adjective that can be used to describe greatness and nobleness can be used on them." Dodola turned to Menglay. It's said that this batch of beings are the ancestors of all living beings that came after, and the primordial humans are exactly one of them. Menglay asked, "What happened after that?" "Later on, this group of beings reproduced, strengthened, and developed to the pinnacle of their existence before a great war broke out in the end. The war lasted until it broke the world Genesis plane," replied Dodola leisurely. "They broke the world Genesis plane?" Menglay was dumbfounded. The eruption of the Great War didn't come as a surprise to him. Conflicts went wherever people were. This was unavoidable anywhere in the world. What did surprise him was that they had actually broken even the world Genesis plane. Just how intense must that war have been? Yes, that's right. The world Genesis plane was broken, and it splintered into countless fragments. Dodola nodded lightly as it went on. The two largest fragments evolved and developed into the two most supreme existential planes of now, the Netherworld and the Celestial Realm, while the other fragments respectively evolved into the other high-end existential planes and innumerable ordinary existential planes. "What happened to those beings?" asked Menglay curiously. "The ones that died, died. The ones that were wiped out, and the ones that managed to flee, fled. The lucky ones who managed to survive relocated to the Netherworld, the Celestial Realm, and other existential planes before ultimately gradually increasing in numbers to become the living beings of now, among which the human race is the descendants of the primordial humans. It's just that as time went by, the humans' bloodline also became thinner and thinner, just like other races. Thus, they are no longer as powerful as the primordial humans." "So the primordial humans really are the humans' ancestors," murmured Menglay to himself. His current body was a human and contained the human ancestors' bloodline. This was undoubtedly true. However, what Menglay hadn't expected was that the humans' ancestors actually had such an influential background. That was rather surprising. Legends are ultimately just legends, so just take it as a story. Don't you take it as the truth. A smiling Dodola said, pure primordial humans have ceased to exist since a long time ago. In fact, the world Genesis plane itself is a legend. Not to mention the living beings that it had birthed. Just a legend. Huh. Menglei couldn't help but look at his stats interface. Race: human, primeval bloodline. Primordial human, 16%. Assimilated bloodline. God-slaying rat, 100%. Evidently, the primordial human bloodline truly existed, thereby proving that the primordial humans had definitely once existed, or rather, they had once appeared before. This was enough to serve as an explanation for some questions. Primordial human bloodline? 16%. In other words, I can buy credit for it. A contemplative Menglei asked in a low voice, how much does it cost to buy credit for the primordial human bloodline system? Ding! Raising the primordial human bloodline by 1% requires 100 million divinity crystals, replied the system coldly. 100 million divinity crystals? It instantly left Menglei flabbergasted. He'd guessed that it would be very expensive, but he hadn't expected the price to be that ridiculous. Expensive could no longer cut it. It was totally an astronomical sum. One divinity crystal equals 10,000 laws of nature origin crystals in that case. How many laws of nature origin crystals would 100 million divinity crystals be? Menglei couldn't be bothered to do the calculations anymore. In any case, he couldn't afford it. This indirectly reflects how insane the primordial human bloodline is, however. If I can buy enough credit to boost it to 100%, I can probably walk the world unhindered. With a shake of his head, Menglei exited the Tower of Time. His gaze fell onto the blood-black stone. My assimilation of the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline had failed just now, but it should be able to succeed now, right? System: assimilate the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline. Ding! Assimilating the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline now. Boom! Inky, pitch-black flames suddenly arose and instantly engulfed Menglei, burning his clothes into ashes everywhere they went. Boom! Severe pain assaulted his nerves like tidal waves that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Menglei felt as if the flesh and blood all over him were on fire, blazing every inch of him, roasting every piece of him, boiling every part of him. Wisps of black smoke arose from the top of Menglei's head. Thousands upon thousands of black flames cruised through his limbs and body like innumerable nimble and agile dragons, modifying every cell, every inch of flesh and blood, every organ. Screech! All of a sudden, a crisp, loud, and sonorous cry abruptly rang out, and the hologram of a gigantic bird appeared above Menglei. An inky black all over and covered in black plumes. It had a cockatoo-like head and a snake-like neck, as well as a strong jaw and a raised back. It craned its neck and let out a sonorous cry into the sky. Sound waves rolled as vast. Mighty divine power spread into the surroundings. Splurt! Splurt! Amid bone-chilling splurts, black plumes began to sprout from Menglei. In just a split second, he was already covered from head to toe in black feathers. Right on the heels of it, a pair of wings sprouted from Menglei's back. Then, as if a balloon being inflated, it began to grow in size. In just a short 2 to 3 breaths, they had become 3 to 4 meters long. The black flames gradually subsided back into his body at this point, while the pain and agony also slowly ebbed away like the receding tide. Menglei clenched his fist. His strength had increased again. Menglei murmured to himself, "So, this is the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline?" With just a mere thought, a dancing flame, pitch black like ink, bewitching, proud, and aloof, immediately appeared on his fingertip. The Netherworld divine fire. With a flick of his fingers, the flame shot out and landed on a large rock. The large rock reacted like dry firewood to the blazing fire and began to burn right away. As expected of the Netherworld divine fire that can burn even a higher deity to death. It's indeed terrifying. Menglei let out a sigh of marvel before he then looked at his stats interface. Host: Menglei race. Human, primeval bloodline. Primordial human, 16%. Assimilated bloodlines. God-slaying rat 100%. Divine Netherworld Phoenix 20%. Wealth 11.31 million. Laws of nature. Origin crystals. Physical body constitution. Half-Deity, high-grade, spirit. Half-Deity, high-grade power of divinity. 0.1 divinity. Crystal laws of nature. Innate special abilities. Teleportation, dark elemental transformation. Rise from the ashes. Why is my divine body still remaining at high grade? How strange. I clearly felt an enhancement in my body. Meng Lei was rather puzzled. Am I still falling a little short of a pinnacle-level divine body? If it's just a little system, how much does it cost to raise my divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline assimilation rate? Ding! Raising the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline by 1% requires 10 laws of nature origin crystals, replied the system coldly. As I've expected, the pricing is identical to that of the god-slaying rat bloodline. Meng Lei nodded lightly and instructed, System, raise my divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline assimilation rate to 100%. Whoosh! His wealth instantly shrank by 800 laws of nature origin crystals. At the same time, the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline assimilation rate also successfully reached 100%. Meng Lei looked at the stats interface again. This time, it didn't disappoint. His divine body had reached pinnacle level like what he'd hoped for. He had taken another big step toward a true god-level body. God-slaying rat bloodline, 100%. Divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline, 100%. Like the god-slaying rat, I'm probably only considered a juvenile divine Netherworld Phoenix at best now, I guess. And this innate special ability called Rise from the Ashes, too. How am I supposed to use it? Am I supposed to self-immolate? Roar. Despicable bubbles. You've enraged the great Baxter. A furious dragon roar rang out. I'm going to corrode you to death with my dragon breath. You cowardly little black dragon that only knows to run for your life. Fight me if you dare. Bubbles' voice rang out as well. Are those two fellows duking it out? Meng Lei exited his state of phoenix transformation, put on a new robe, and left Baxter's den to see a fierce battle taking place outside. Boom! Baxter, the black dragon, flapped its wings as it sprayed dragon breath from its jaws, attacking while fleeing about at the same time. As for Bubbles, he dodged the dragon breath while he chased after Baxter. Although he was taking the great initiative to attack, he was ultimately still a tad too slow. Forced to chase after Baxter and dodge the dragon breath at the same time, he was so infuriated that he couldn't help but roar furiously. Yet there was nothing he could do about it. Bubbles is too slow. Meng Lei shook his head. Then he shouted, Stop, Bubbles! Master! At the sound of his voice, Bubbles stopped in his tracks. He said, Wait a moment. I must catch that damned black dragon and give it a good beating. The day will be over by the time you catch up to it. Meng Lei said calmly, Let me do it instead. I can also try out my new ability along the way. All right. Bubbles gave Baxter a livid glare before he indignantly retreated to where Meng Lei was. Lowly worm. Who are you? Baxter, the black dragon, didn't attack recklessly anymore. Instead, its eyes were fixed on Meng Lei. The brief exchange of blows just now had shown Baxter just how powerful Meng Lei was. Thus, it was currently very wary of him. Who I am isn't important. Meng Lei shrugged as he said, What's important is that I've just ransacked your den and robbed you of all your riches. Aren't you going in to take a look? What did you say? Baxter was greatly alarmed at his words. It hurriedly flapped its wings and swooped toward the den, roaring furiously as it did. Damned human. I'll never let you off if you dare ransack my den. Never let me off? I'm afraid you won't have the chance to. Meng Lei chuckled. He took the opportunity to instantly flick his fingers while Baxter was swooping toward him, and a lick of pitch-black flames instantly landed on Baxter. The flames spread rapidly. In just the span of a few breaths, they had spread to cover a large expanse. Ah! Baxter swatted its wings frantically as it cried out, trying to put out the Netherworld divine fire. Yet the more it did, the bigger the fire became and the fiercer they blazed. A few moments later, the Netherworld divine fire had spread all over Baxter and was completely enveloping it within. Divine technique. Separate. Baxter cast a divine technique without any hesitation. However, the tragic thing was that the moment the divine technique landed on itself, it was as though it had doused itself in petrol instead. Not only did it not strip the Netherworld divine fire from itself, but it instead blazed even more fiercely, actually using a divine technique to expel the Netherworld divine fire? The ignorant are fearless, indeed. The Netherworld divine fire is an everlasting flame that could burn even the power of divinity. Ah! A shrill cry resounded throughout the underground as Baxter the Black Dragon struggled madly. Everywhere its cry passed through, the earth shook, and the mountains swayed. Large rocks rolled off and fell as dust and earth flew about. What kind of fire is that? Bubbles shuddered, somewhat frightened, as he watched Baxter, who was struggling in pain and agony amidst the black flames. No matter how wretched Baxter might be, it was still a black dragon that had already manifested a divine core and whose strength reached the heights of a mid-level half-deity. Yet it was actually powerless against the black flames. This was practically inconceivable. Spare my life. At last, Baxter could no longer stand against it, and it began to beg for mercy loudly. Offer your divine spirit origin energy and submit to me, Meng Lei said aloofly. Only through submission will you be able to live. Baxter hesitated at once. Handing over its divine spirit origin energy implied that Meng Lei would end up taking full control of its life. How would that do? Unwilling to submit? Die then. Meng Lei shrugged, his expression one of indifference. Then he ordered, "Let's go." Bubbles and Little Gold. Little Gold nodded hurriedly. Somewhat in a state of shock, it wished only to leave the area at the moment. With a complex look on his visage, Bubbles asked, "Master, what will happen to Baxter?" The Netherworld divine fire is an everlasting flame. It'll never extinguish before it burns everything away, Meng Lei said aloofly. Baxter is destined for only one outcome, and that is, to be burned alive into ashes by the Netherworld divine fire. Burned into ashes? Bubbles swallowed hard, a hint of abject fear flashing across his eyes. Let's go. Meng Lei waved dismissively. Then, he wrapped Little Gold in God's domain and flew into the distance, while Bubbles hastily followed after him. At the sight of them leaving for Real, Baxter panicked at once. What am I going to do if you leave? Submit. I'll submit, Baxter bellowed. It ultimately didn't manage to restrain itself after all. Meng Lei shook his head lightly and teleported over to where Baxter was. He asked, "Do you need me to repeat what you should be doing?" Well played, human. Indignation filled Baxter's eyes, but it still released its divine spirit origin energy in the end. Unexpectedly, a few terrifying auras suddenly descended at this point and swept through the entire underground space. Upon sensing the auras, Baxter instantly retracted its divine spirit origin energy and glowered furiously at Meng Lei instead. "My friends are here, you lowly human. Extinguish the flames on me at once. Otherwise, I'll definitely give you a tragic death. You're hopeless, Baxter." With a slight frown, Meng Lei turned to the few that had just descended upon the area. There were 4 new arrivals, and every one of them gave off vast, mighty divine power and were all half-deities. The first half-deity had a head of red hair and gave off a vast, ancient dragon might. It was a fire dragon. The second had a peculiar appearance. Instead of a human, he looked more like a robot constructed from metal. The third was a human, dressed in a knight's armor and holding a knight's broadsword. He had mighty, imposing, and squarish facial features and emanated a righteous aura around him. The last half-deity was an octopus. With more than a dozen tentacles, it gave off a bloodthirsty and brutal aura. "Baxter, my friend, what happened to you?" The fire dragon half-deity's countenance turned grim right away as it gazed at Baxter, who was shrouded in black flames and struggling fiercely. "Kill him, Klaus." "No, don't. Capture him instead." A somewhat hysterical Baxter pointed at Meng Lei and said, "Yes, Capture him and make him remove these goddamn flames first. I'm close to being burned to death. Black flames. The octopus half-deity stared at the netherworld divine fire around Baxter. Then, it suddenly exclaimed, "That's the netherworld divine fire. Oh my god. That's the netherworld divine fire." The fire dragon half-deity, robot half-deity, and human half-deity quickly asked, "Mervyn, what's the netherworld divine fire?" In a low, deep voice, the octopus half-deity explained, "The netherworld divine fire is an everlasting flame from hell, capable of burning everything. It's said to be able to burn even a true god to death." An everlasting flame from hell? Capable of burning everything? Able to burn even a true god to death? The three half-deities' countenances changed drastically, deep restraining fear forming in their eyes as they watched the black flames. Those flames could burn even a true god to death, but they were only half-deities. Damn! To think it's actually the netherworld divine fire. Baxter's face had completely darkened. It roared hysterically, "Quick! Take him down. Make him extinguish these goddamn flames. I don't want to die. I don't want to be burned to death." Knowing that they mustn't delay this any further, the four half-deities' gazes fell onto Meng Lei. In icy cold voices, they ordered, "Put out the netherworld divine fire at once." Human. Meng Lei gave them a leisurely smile. He didn't take their threats seriously. Instead, he looked at the human half-deity among the four and asked in puzzlement, "I didn't sense any other auras from you. Are you human?" "My name is Galen Bonaparte." The human knight's eyes bore into Meng Lei as he gave his name. "Galen Bonaparte? You're the Swirling Snow Sword Saint." A jolt went through Meng Lei as he asked, "Aren't you the Sword Saint of humans? Why are you here?" Galen Bonaparte, the Swirling Snow Sword Saint. To every human, that was a figure of grand reputation. One of exceptional aptitude, he made a name for himself at a young age and, as a human, crushed innumerable dragon geniuses. His name was known throughout the Dragon God Empire and was an extremely rare genius and powerhouse among the humans. He was also the idol and pride of innumerable human boys and men alike. Yet to think that a figure like that was actually lurking in the underground world and associating with evil deities of the underground. This was practically inconceivable. The Swirling Snow Sword Saint has ceased to exist a long time ago. Galen Bonaparte shook his head slowly. The one standing before you now is but just an ordinary half-deity. Even human saint domains are extremely rare, let alone half-deities. Stand aside. "I won't kill you," said Meng Lei with a shake of his head. "How presumptuous!" Galen Bonaparte gave an icy snort as he formed a sword with his fingers and let out a furious shout. Divine technique, judgment, clank. A dazzling, gigantic golden sword of light descended from the sky and cleaved toward Meng Lei lightning quick, its speed reaching the extremes. Such agility! What a shame! Meng Lei quietly appeared 3 meters away and said, "You're no match for me. Don't bother wasting any more effort." He's actually dodged it? Astonishment came over Galen Bonaparte's features. The speed of his divine technique, judgment, was close to teleportation. Ordinary half-deities couldn't dodge it in time at all. Yet Meng Lei had actually managed to do so. "Take him down. Quick! Take him down." Baxter, the black dragon, began to urge them again. "Stop freaking dilly-dallying. If you tarry any further, I'm going to burn to death. Attack!" Upon hearing his words, the 4 half-deities promptly launched their attacks. God's domain. The 4 of them cast God's domain simultaneously in an attempt to suppress Meng Lei. However, what disappointed them was that Meng Lei had vanished into thin air. "He's gone. Where's he?" The 4 of them widened their eyes in astonishment. "You're too slow." Behind them, a mocking voice rang out, and the 4 of them looked behind them in horror. Meng Lei had appeared behind them at some point, and 4 black spears were floating above his palm. "Go!" With a flick of his fingers, the 4 black spears shot out at once. Splurt! Splurt! The distance between the spears and the 4 half-deities was simply too close. Unable to dodge in time at all four were unsurprisingly hit by the spears. The black spears struck them in the chests before bursting into flames. They were actually spears of flames manifested from Netherworld divine fire. Damn! It's the Netherworld divine fire. The octopus half-deity's countenance changed dramatically, and it actually attempted to valiantly cut its losses by using a dagger to shave off the flesh at its chest and, in turn, remove the Netherworld divine fire on its chest. However, the miserable thing was that its divine body was fairly tough and durable, so the broken dagger simply couldn't pierce through its skin. When it finally did, after much difficulty, it actually couldn't shave off even a piece of its flesh after half a day of going at it. With one thing leading to another, not only was the Netherworld divine fire not removed, but it even spread swiftly throughout its body. The other three were pretty much in the same situation. They either cast divine techniques or swatted at themselves, but the final outcomes were all the same. The more they swatted, the bigger the flames became and the fiercer they blazed. Ah! 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 Why do you even put yourselves in such a situation? Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Then, he retracted the Netherworld divine fire on Galen Bonaparte with a casual move and said aloofly, "Leave! You're not going to kill me?" Disbelief was written all over Galen Bonaparte's countenance. "On account of how you're a human, I'll let you off, but I'll only do it just this once," replied Meng Lei dispassionately. "Who exactly are you?" Galen Bonaparte watched Meng Lei closely. "Human. The one standing before you right now is my great and noble master, Meng Lei," Bubbles said, "the new emperor of Dragon God Empire, and the strongest half-deity of Heaven's Vault Continent. The Emperor of Dragon God Empire? You're a dragon." Fury appeared on Galen Bonaparte's face as he spat. "I am mortal enemies with Dragon God Empire. Even if I were to die, I'd never accept the dragon's kindness. You'd better just kill me instead." "Are you misunderstanding something, human?" Displeased, Bubbles said. "Master Meng Lei is pure human. He has overthrown the dragon's reign and slain the Dragon Island half-deities. He has no connection whatsoever to the dragons." "What did you say?" An astounded Galen Bonaparte exclaimed. "Overthrown the dragon's reign? Slain the Dragon Island half-deities? How can that be? The great Bubbles never lies. Would I deceive you?" Bubbles was rather dissatisfied. "Ask around if you don't believe me." Galen Bonaparte's mouth opened and closed. After a long while, he finally said, "If you've really overthrown the dragon's reign and taken revenge for me, I am willing to become your follower. I swear on my honor as a knight. You can go and verify this for yourself." Meng Lei gave him a slight smile. "Goodbye." Galen Bonaparte gave Meng Lei a long, deep look. Then, he glanced at the four other half-deities struggling in the black flames before turning and leaving. Although the underground half-deities were extremely united against outsiders, the friendships among them didn't go that deep. In fact, there was dissension and brutal competition among them, and now, since he was heading to the surface, his worshippers in the underground were already no longer of any importance. "Master, are you allowing him to leave just like that?" Puzzlement came over Bubbles' features as he said, "He's probably not going to come back after he leaves. It doesn't matter even if he doesn't return. There aren't many human half-deities. It's a shame to kill him." The four half-deities were initially able to persevere through the burning of the Netherworld divine fire, but toward the end, none of them could persevere any longer. "You may live on if you submit to me." This was still the only choice that Meng Lei gave them. Without any surprise, the fire dragon half-deity, the octopus half-deity, and the robot half-deity hesitated. In contrast, Baxter, the black dragon, didn't hesitate any further this time and promptly begged for mercy. It was just a shame that Meng Lei rejected it this time. "I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Yet you're begging for mercy again now? It's too late." "New." In the end, Baxter the Black Dragon was burned into ashes amid several screams of pain and regret and paid a heavy price for going back on his word. "Submit. We're willing to submit. To submit. Master, my name is Mervyn Babel. My true form is a giant squid. Master, my name is Klaustroff. My true form is a mutated fire dragon. Master, my name is the Pursuer. My true form is a being created via alchemy. Meng Lei gave the three half-deities a hearty welcome before setting off with them in tow. Under the three underground half-deities' lead, the subsequent journey became even easier. Meng Lei weaved smoothly through the evil deities' territories, one after another like a fish in the water. In just a short half a day's time, he had ransacked 6 half-deities' dens and gained innumerable treasures, resulting in his wealth spiking dramatically. Of course, he also subdued another 2 half-deities along the way, the Black Panther goddess Nadia Wakanda, whose true form was a Netherworld spiritual panther, and the Thunderbolt Queen Saija Marie, whose true form was a Thunderbolt Naga. For a while there, the number of half-deities under Meng Lei's command actually reached as many as 6. Together with Pahaman and Thanil, who were a great distance away in the Imperial City, that made 8 of them. With such fearsome strength, Meng Lei could practically move about with nothing to fear. Master, up ahead is the Dark Fairies' capital city, the Dark Forest, said Saija, the Thunderbolt goddess, as she pointed at a vast, black forest in front of them. Various black woods and vegetation filled the pitch-black forest as though someone had painted it black. Bugs resembling fireflies crawled all over the trees, giving off a dim, faint light, which brought a bit of illumination to the forest. Meng Lei, who was observing the black forest, remarked in wonder, "This has to be the vastest underground space that I've seen ever since I arrived at the underground world. It's also the most fertile region of the underground world. The spider goddess den is right here," Saija warned. "Master, you must take absolute care. The spider goddess isn't easy to deal with. She's the most ancient and most cunning half-deity of the underground world." "Don't worry. I know what to do." Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then he said, "Let's look for the Dark Mother Tree first. What I'm interested in the most right now isn't the Spider Goddess or the Dark Fairy Empress, but the Dark Mother Tree instead." "Yes, Master." 15 minutes later, Meng Lei and the others arrived at a gigantic tree. Pitch black in color all over, the tree wasn't very tall. The trunk was short, thick, and crooked, and it looked a little like the trees with crooked necks typically found at village entrances. However, its crown was huge and easily covered as far as 100 kilometers in radius. Sprinkled among the luxuriant leaves were also several black vacuoles. Each vacuole contained a little figure that was fast asleep. They looked just like miniature humans sealed in amber. These were dark fairies in mid-gestation. What an impressive Dark Mother Tree! Meng Lei sized up the huge, pitch-black tree, a look of delight coming over his features. He had come to the Dark Fairies' territory this time for 2 purposes, the first being the Dark Fairies' wealth and assets, and the second being the Dark Mother Tree currently in front of him. The Dark Fairy Empress and the Spider Goddess were secondary and weren't that important. A figure stood underneath the Dark Mother Tree at the moment. A blood-red crown sat atop her head, and she wore a blood-black robe. Sensual, alluring, elegant, and graceful. It was the Dark Fairy Empress herself. Apart from her, no one else, not even a single normal Dark Fairy, was present. They had likely heard the news and already retreated to safety in advance. With the other half-deities in tow, Meng Lei came right up to her. With a slight smile on his face, he said, "Your Majesty, we've met again. To think you actually dare to come all the way here." The Dark Fairy Empress had a frosty look on her beautiful countenance, her expression one of extreme sinisterness. One must know that this was the Dark Fairy's capital city, yet Meng Lei had dared to come all the way here. He showed practically no respect for the Dark Fairies. "It's all for your sake, Your Majesty." With his hands behind his back, Meng Lei said, "Your Majesty, you came all the way to my imperial palace and made so much trouble there, only to leave in such a hurry. Don't you owe me an explanation for that?" The Dark Fairy Empress sneered. "I'd advise you to leave at once, human. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." "Consequences? What kind of consequences can there be?" Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. "I've slain even the Dragon Island half-deities. Let alone you, the Dark Fairies? Do you really think that B*TCH, the spider goddess, can do anything about me? Watch your mouth, human! Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. The dark fairy empress' beautiful countenance changed at once, and she berated him furiously. Never mind. I can't be bothered to say anything more. Meng Lei waved dismissively. You've displeased me, so you must give me a satisfactory explanation. Otherwise, I don't mind letting the dark fairies follow in the dragon's footsteps. How arrogant! As a cold, sinister voice rang out, a beautiful lady with a blood-red spider mark on her forehead and dressed in thin, black organza walked toward them. Sensual and alluring, her gait was as though she was on the catwalk. Her long, slender, and attractive thighs revealed astonishing elasticity, and every little action of hers oozed with enticing charm. It's the spider goddess. The 6 half-deity subordinates' countenances changed slightly as deep restraining fear came over their expressions. One's reputation didn't come with no reason, after all. One mustn't be misled by how the spider goddess and the rest of them were all underground half-deities. Be it their status, identity, combat strength, or experience, none of them was on the same level as the spider goddess. Up against an ancient and savage evil deity like the spider goddess, they were incomparably apprehensive. Meng Lei's eyes were also on the spider goddess. The smile on his face gradually toned down. The spider goddess was unlike any other half-deity he'd met in the past. She gave off neither power of divinity energy fluctuations, nor aura. She was just like an ordinary human being, harmless and mediocre. But the more that was so, the more cautious Meng Lei became. As the saying went, the dog that bites doesn't bark. The more one couldn't read another, the more dangerous they usually were. And in this case, the spider goddess presented an extremely great threat to Meng Lei. Young man, do you find yourself very impressive just because you've killed the Dragon Island half-deities? How foolish. The spider goddess walked up to Meng Lei and said, all you've done is kill a few pieces of trash at best. Is that so? Meng Lei raised an eyebrow. They've never been the ones whom Dragon God Empire relied on to stand strong in Heaven's Vault continent over the last 40,000 years. A look of contempt adorned the spider goddess' visage as she said, you'll experience that very soon. What exactly are you trying to say? Meng Lei broke into a slight frown. I'll give you a reminder, young man. The spider goddess gazed at Meng Lei as she said, that stinky lizard's revenge will descend upon you very soon. When the time comes, you'll realize just how foolish your ways were. I'm looking forward to that very much, though. Meng Lei shrugged. I've killed many colossal dragons, as well as many half-deities, but I've never slain a true god before. I can't wait to have a taste of it. Hee hee. Upon hearing what he'd said, the spider goddess burst into loud guffawing as if she'd just heard the funniest thing in the world. Her chest heaved up and down as she laughed. Young man, you're too childish. You don't understand the gap between a half-deity and a true god at all. The spider goddess had a look of compassion on her face. Perhaps, I guess, Meng Lei said aloofly, placing the dragon god's matters aside for the time being. Let's talk about you and me instead. The dark fairy empress has angered me. How are you going to resolve this matter? Can this even be considered an issue? The spider goddess was indifferent. Young man, if there's nothing else, you can take your leave now. I have other matters to busy myself with. So pardon me if I don't see you off. By the way, here's a word of advice for you. If you have the leisure to be fooling around here, why don't you think about how you should be dealing with that stinky lizard's revenge instead? Fooling around? Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. Then, with a flash of his machete, he broke the hair stick adorning the top of the spider goddess' hair. I'm speaking with you very seriously right now, spider goddess. I hope you can also treat this with equal seriousness. Otherwise, what the machete will be slicing next wouldn't be a hair stick but your neck instead. You're too impudent, young man. At once, the spider goddess' countenance changed. This is my turf. There's no place for you to behave so atrociously here. Is that so? I'd like very much to try that, then. Meng Lei's lips corners quirked upward. Scram! The spider goddess let out a furious roar, causing violent, raging sound waves to explode into the surroundings instantly. Like a broken mirror, the dimension splintered and broke into pieces, forming a black, bottomless hole. As Meng Lei was too close in proximity, the black hole instantly pulled him in, and he disappeared from sight. At the sight, the 6 half-deities' countenances immediately changed. All of them retreated to the back, lest the black hole sucked them in as well. A brief moment later, the sound waves dispersed, and the black hole also vanished along with it. Everything returned to normal. Where's Master? Where did he go? However, the 6 half-deities were staring at the spot where Meng Lei had been, somewhat alarmed and uneasy. Mervyn, the squid half-deity, lowered its voice and asked, "The space-time rift has swept him away. I'm afraid he's... this?" At the sound of his reply, the remaining 5 half-deities' countenances changed. Swept into the time-space rift? How was he supposed to survive that? "Your Holiness, where's that human?" asked the Dark Fairy Empress respectfully. "He's been exiled into the space-time rift by me," the Spider Goddess said aloofly. "I'd wondered just how impressive he was since you've hyped him up so much. Little did I think that he'd just be a foolish, ignorant dimwit. I was wrong." The Dark Fairy Empress hastily dropped onto her knees and admitted her mistake. "Go, let your clansmen return." The Spider Goddess waved her off. "Yes, Your Holiness." The Dark Fairy Empress walked over to the Dark Mother Tree and said, "Mother Tree, teleport our clansmen back." "Understood." As an aged voice rang out, a gigantic dark magic circle also appeared and lit up on the ground. Then, a series of space-time fluctuations traveled toward them. Buzz. Almost 10,000 dark fairies wearing tree bark armor with bows and arrows slung over their backs appeared within the magic circle. "Your Holiness." The dark fairies bowed to the Spider Goddess in greeting, their countenances respectful. The Spider Goddess nodded lightly and got ready to leave. Unexpectedly, it was at this moment that a slightly astonished voice abruptly rang out. "So that's the Dark Mother Tree's transferability? To think it can actually transfer 10,000 people at one go. It's amazing, indeed." A huge jolt went through the Spider Goddess. The Dark Fairy Empress, as well as Bubbles and the other 5 half-deities, were also awfully astonished. Everyone looked over to the source of the voice, only to see a figure appearing in the air, dressed in a robe and holding a machete. Who else could it be, other than Meng Lei himself? "You're actually... The Spider Goddess was flabbergasted. "Your Holiness the Goddess. Do wait for a moment." Meng Lei turned to the Spider Goddess and cast a glance at her before he immediately contacted the system. "System, how much does it cost to plunder the Dark Mother Tree's transferability?" Ding! The Dark Mother Tree's transferability is a high-grade innate special ability and can power up along with one's combat power. Thus, it is considered an evolutionary innate special ability. The system continued coldly and said, "The Dark Mother Tree possesses the strength of an elementary-level half-deity. As such, the cost of plundering said innate special ability is estimated at 120 laws of nature origin crystals." 120 laws of nature origin crystals? That's absolutely fine. Do it. If it were before, he would only be able to see. However, as long as Meng Lei was willing, he could just take these things out of thin air, to be more exact, teleport over. Such an amazing ability. Let me test it out. Meng Lei found something in the sedimentary rocks underground as he teleported it over with just a thought. It was a rusty chest. Meng Lei was overjoyed. This ability was really useful, especially for digging treasures, stealing, or looting treasuries. "Master, what's this?" Bubbles asked curiously as he saw Meng Lei standing for a while, and a chest appeared out of nowhere. "Nothing. Just testing out new abilities." Meng Lei kept the chest and looked at the Dark Mother Tree. "Mother Tree, thank you for your generosity. This ability was very useful and I liked it. Oh, Oh? Dark Mother Tree did not understand. However, the Dark Fairy Empress expression changed drastically. "You don't mean... Haha, it's exactly what you think it is." Meng Lei smiled. He was in a good mood. "Her Holiness, Now that I've settled my stuff, let us carry on. Human, get lost now before I am enraged. The spider goddess's delicate face was stone cold. Otherwise, your holiness would not mind keeping you here. How imposing, her holiness! Meng Lei laughed coldly. Then I would like to see how you're going to make me stay. You're courting death. The spider goddess was furious as she extended her fingers toward Meng Lei at lightning speed. Meng Lei vanished instantly and appeared suddenly behind the spider goddess, slashing down his machete. Clink! The blood-red machete hit the spider goddess back solidly with flashing sparks. Other than that, she did not take any damage. So tough. Meng Lei backed off in shock. This Abyss Blade Demon's companion machete could slice open a divine beast like the Tricannon pig with ease, but it couldn't even scratch the spider goddess. Did she add silicone rubber to her back that it became so tough? You damned monkey! You have enraged me! The spider goddess face was livid, emitting a chilling murderous intent. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dozens of blood-colored steel needles appeared abruptly and shot toward Meng Lei at lightning speed. Every single needle had a lurid glow of green, obviously tainted with poison. Her holiness! This human can teleport. The Dark Fairy Empress reminded loudly. This level of attack won't be effective against him. Teleport? The spider goddess snorted coldly. Thousands of white spider silk gushed out, forming an enormous funnel covering over 1,000 meters of the area around. Well then, little rat, let me see how you can teleport in my divine territory. The spider goddess laughed coldly as she carried on shooting those needles toward Meng Lei. Meng Lei seemed that he was unable to teleport as the blood-red steel needles flooded him. Damned monkey, you're dead meat. The spider goddess licked her delicious red lips with a smug smile. These needles were made with her scopulae, which were indestructible. Plus, they were poisoned, and any half-deity that touched them would die inevitably. Clink, clink, clink. Yet, to the spider goddess' surprise, the blood-colored needles came off Meng Lei's body as if nails were being beaten onto a steel plate, making the sound of clashing metals. Then they all dropped on the floor. What? It didn't penetrate. The spider goddess was in disbelief. Hey, spider goddess, your attack was ineffective against me too. Are you disappointed? Meng Lei pulled off his tattered robes and showed off his naked skin. Soft, tender, unblemished skin, and a toned muscular body. There were just no wounds. Didn't expect your divine body to be so tough. The spider goddess was truly shaken up. Same for you. Meng Lei loosened up and made crackling sounds. Been using weapons for a while now, haven't gotten loose for a long time now. Come on. Let's battle for 300 rounds. Whoosh! His voice was still echoing around as Meng Lei had disappeared, appearing abruptly before the spider goddess and throwing a punch. Boom! Berserking power exploded onto the spider goddess as she flew off, followed tightly by Meng Lei. Boom, boom, boom. The punches were like dense raindrops falling one after the other onto the spider goddess body. The spider goddess was like a baseball being thrown around without any way to counter. The spider goddess is actually getting dominated. Am I seeing things wrong? The 6 half-deities were dazed. The Dark Fairy Empress was dazed. The 10,000 Dark Fairies were dazed. They could not believe what they were witnessing. Who was the spider goddess? The most ancient and terrifying half-deity of the underground world. The being in the same era as the 4 true gods, the established strongest half-deity of the underground world. It was absolutely unbelievable that a mighty being like her was dominated in this manner. Is this all you got? I didn't use any of my divine weapons, not even my divine fire, yet you are still no match against me. How disappointing. Meng Lei punched at random as he taunted, infuriating the spider goddess even more. Scum, you better die. Innate special ability. Enchant. A pink-colored power of divinity gushed out of the spider goddess and flooded Meng Lei instantly. In an instant, a fascinating scene appeared in Meng Lei's mind. Peaches were blossoming, petals were falling. An undisguised spider goddess was flaunting flirtatiously. Meng Lei's eyes lit up, and he drooled all over. Here's my chance. The spider goddess seized upon the opportunity and stuck out 8 blood-red spider spears from her back, which were rather similar to Tang San's 8 spider lances, and struck toward Meng Lei at lightning speed. Whoosh! Just as the blood spider spears were about to pierce Meng Lei, he vanished. The spider goddess was dumbfounded yet again. Her holiness! Meng Lei appeared over 100 meters away with an admiring smile. Wow, that scene just now was really exciting, and I liked it. If you're willing, we can interact in private. Not now, though, there are too many people. You've managed to break free of my enchantment. The spider goddess grimaced. That counts as enchantment? Meng Lei sneered. Your father has experienced 17,450 tribulations and been through 1,800 setbacks. So I've already become indestructible, immune to all poisons, and all evils avoid me. Yours mean nothing. You bastard! The spider goddess gnashed her teeth in rage and scorned. I'll kill you!
Divine technique, emprisonnement.
Dazzling golden power of divinity poured out and shrouded the area within 1,000 meters. Meng Lei could only feel a dreadful power of imprisonment imposed on his body as he could not move. Divine territory plus an imprisonment divine technique managed to limit my movements. Meng Lei was rather surprised. D. The spider goddess approached within a breath and flushed out those 8 spider spears. Okay then, let me finish this off. The corners of Meng Lei's mouth curled up. Right at the moment when the spears were about to hit, black flames spewed out like thick smoke and burned back. Boom! The 8 spider spears stung on Meng Lei, though they still could not penetrate Meng Lei's skin, while the black flames stuck onto the spider goddess body. It's over. The spider goddess will be dead for sure. The 6th half-deity watching the battle had the same thought. Once caught in the flames of the Netherworld divine fire, the fate of this battle was sealed. Unfortunately, the spider goddess did not realize the impending doom as she struck twice again in defiance, seeing that her 8 spider spears could not pierce through Meng Lei. As for the black flames on her body, she was not concerned. With her divine body's toughness, how could mere mortal flames do any harm to her? Damn it! How could it be so tough? The spider goddess was reluctant to accept defeat. Countless spider webs came out of thin air, which spun around Meng Lei into a cocoon. Human, just because your divine body is tough doesn't mean I can't kill you, the spider goddess said coldly. I have many ways to kill you. Kill me? I guess you'll never see that. Meng Lei shook his head and smiled. Her holiness, I guarantee that you will die before me. You're almost dead and still so stubborn. When the spider goddess sneered, she felt a throbbing pain in her chest. The black flames had reached the chest area and were burning relentlessly. Damn! How is this possible? The spider goddess let off a scream as she tried to beat the flames away to no avail. The Netherworld divine fire could burn anything. Once caught in it, there was no way to extinguish it. The more she tried to put out the flames, the more they burned. Soon, she was completely engulfed in black flames. Accept your fate, Her Holiness. Meng Lei lit up the webs on him and stood up. This is the Netherworld divine fire. You'd never withstand it even if your divine body was 10 times tougher. Netherworld divine fire? This is the Netherworld divine fire? The spider goddess's face was ridden with shock. How could a human like you be able to use the divine Netherworld Phoenix's Netherworld divine fire? It's not possible. That isn't important. Meng Lei shook his head. Damn it! The spider goddess was in a state of rage and shock, though any resistance was futile. In the end, she burnt into a giant 10,000 feet tall black widow with a body full of urticating hair. It danced around in black flames, letting off shrills of screams that would chill anyone to the bones. Spider goddess, tell me if you want to stay alive. I do have tender, protective feelings for the fairer sex. Meng Lei shook his head slightly and looked at his half-deity subordinates. Find the treasury of the dark fairies and inform me when you've located it. Yes, master. The 6 half-deities were on their toes as they carried out Meng Lei's order without delay. After witnessing that battle, Meng Lei's formidable, almighty image was deeply engraved into their hearts. They were now completely submitted to his command and dared not to spring up any thoughts of rebellion. An indestructible divine body, a ghostly incomparable speed, black flames that could burn virtually anything. How could a human half-deity be this powerful? Human, what do you want? The spider goddess bellowed deeply as she could not hold on any longer. Simple, submit under my command. Meng Lei crossed his arms and smiled lightly. Only by submitting can you survive. In your dreams, the spider goddess bellowed hysterically. I'll rather be burned alive, burned into ashes, burned into a malicious spirit than to ever submit myself to you. Okay, then you can die now. Off you go. Come back. I'll submit. Zero, an internet slang used to describe someone doing something that he or she had previously sworn never to do. In fact, half-deities feared death even more so than ordinary humans. And wasn't that so? Because the spider goddess, the most ancient and most savage half-deity in the underground world, had also submitted to him. Knowing that it would have turned out this way, why bother doing all that earlier? After refining the spider goddess divine spirit origin energy, Meng Lei retracted the Netherworld divine fire on the spider goddess and officially took her in under his wing. How despicable of you! The spider goddess, who had transformed into her true form, glowered furiously at Meng Lei, her eyes brimming with indignation. Do you not admit defeat? A sneering Meng Lei scoffed. Not only were you unable to beat me, but you were even the one who had submitted on your own accord. I didn't force you into it, so why should you be so indignant? You! The spider goddess was livid. Sure, you certainly didn't force me into submitting, but you were goddamn burning me with fire. Is that not forcing me into it? Speechless, aren't you? In that case, then shut up. Otherwise, I don't mind turning you into a dead spider. Meng Lei let out an icy snort and said, Listen up now. Hand over all your wealth and assets. I don't care if it's gold coins or treasures. Hand them all over to me. If you dare to keep any for yourself, I'll destroy you right away. You! The spider goddess was infuriated, but she nevertheless gave in and obediently offered up all of her savings for the sake of her life. Only then was Meng Lei satisfied, and he began to look through the spider goddess assets. However, what surprised him was that aside from laws of nature origin crystals, they were all rather strange and peculiar objects. What's this? An abyss demon's heart. What about this? A Cerberus skull. What about that pitch-black thing there? A deep ocean magical whale king's eyeball. You sure have some unusual interests. After taking all the laws of nature origin crystals, Meng Lei returned the rest of the items to the spider goddess. That mess of items was of no use to him. The only ones who would be interested in them were probably weirdos like the spider goddess. Master, we found the dark fairies' treasury. His 6 half-deity subordinates also brought him some good news at this point. Wonderful! 15 minutes later, the dark fairies' treasury also suffered Meng Lei's ransacking. Meng Lei had very high expectations these days. Aside from gold coins and laws of nature origin crystals, he couldn't be bothered to take run-of-the-mill treasures. Even so, he still made a fortune. I was right in coming to the underground world indeed. As he gazed at his stats interface, Meng Lei was in such a fantastic mood that he was even making snot bubbles. Host, Meng Lei race. Human, primeval bloodline. Primordial human, 16%. Assimilated bloodlines. God-slaying rat, divine netherworld phoenix. Wealth, 23.51 million laws of nature origin crystals physical body constitution. Half-deity, pinnacle grade. Spirit, half-deity, high-grade power of divinity. 0.1 divinity crystal laws of nature. Some increase innate special abilities. Teleportation, dark elemental transformation. Rise from the ashes. Transfer, not only have I gained the divine Netherworld Phoenix bloodline and the transfer ability, but my wealth has also doubled. On top of that, I've also subdued so many half-deity subordinates. This trip was totally worth every penny and more. Meng Lei was in a fantastic mood. His wealth had previously been 11.31 million laws of nature origin crystals, but now it had more than doubled to 23.51 laws of nature origin crystals. The underground world was worth the trip. There's also the Sunset Ranges and the Golden Archipelago next. I wonder how much profits they'll bring me. Here's hoping that they don't disappoint. Meng Lei was in the midst of his thoughts when Dodola's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. It said, "Meng Lei, hurry and come in. The fallen angel egg is about to hatch." Eh? At once, Meng Lei vanished on the spot. Tower of Time, 96th level. The 96th level was currently raging like a storm. It was filled with turbulence and unrest, while dark clouds rolled and billowed as lightning flashed and thunder boomed. A gigantic funnel appeared in the sky and furiously absorbed all the dark elements within 1,000 miles. Then, it surged toward the fallen angel egg below. The blood-red patterns on the egg surface were as though vessels engorged with blood. They gave off a dazzling blood-red brilliance that lit up the area within several miles of where the egg was. Puff, puff, the eggshell quivered rhythmically as though it was breathing. Every time it quivered, it absorbed vast quantities of dark elements, while the blood-red patterns on the surface of the egg also became even brighter and even more brilliant. Is it really about to hatch? Meng Lei was rather excited. That was a fallen angel egg, a legendary being that could rival a half-deity the moment it was born. And now it was about to come into the world right before his eyes. It's about to hatch. Dodola was also watching the blood-red egg intently. True enough, it had only just spoken when the blood-red patterns on the eggshell suddenly split and formed several cracks on the surface. Crack, crack. More and more cracks formed, spreading swiftly throughout the egg. Crack. At last, the egg broke with a loud explosion, and a dazzling blood-red beam of light shot into the sky. At the same time, a surging torrential wave of blood-red aura also began to spread and sweep through the surroundings. Upon sensing the aura, every living being on the half-plane prostrated on the ground in fear and trepidation. A fully naked infant with a pair of black wings on her back appeared in midair. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her arms were folded over her chest as if she was fast asleep. Then, she slowly opened her eyes. In the center of her jet-black eyes were blood-red pupils, which bore a striking resemblance to the legendary Sharingan one. That aura! There's no mistaking it. Dodola said slowly, "It's the fallen angel." So, that's the fallen angel? Meng Lei was also somewhat astonished. The little fellow that had just come into the world looked naive and adorable, like a porcelain doll that had walked out of a fairy tale. Yet the aura she emanated could actually rival a half-deity's. Would anyone believe that? The little fallen angel directed her gaze to Meng Lei at this point, upon which a pure and innocent smile immediately surfaced on her visage. Then, she flapped her wings and flew toward Meng Lei. Perhaps because she had only just been born, her wings were somewhat stiff, causing her to fly askew, but no matter what, she managed to ultimately fly over. Hug! Hug! The little fallen angel stretched out her soft, tender arms and requested for a hug in a young, childlike voice. Pure and innocent eyes filled with hope. Just how similar was she to a human baby? Meng Lei fell in love with the little fellow at first sight. He reached out and carried her in his arms before giving her a big kiss. Hee. The little fallen angel burst into delighted giggles and giggled like a 1-year-old child. The power of the blood pact is impressive, indeed. From now on, the only person she'll acknowledge is Meng Lei, marveled Dodola inwardly. Then it said, "Why don't you give her a name, Meng Lei?" "Let's name her Cola," replied Meng Lei immediately without a second thought. Cola? Dodola was dumbfounded. What kind of weird name is that? It sounds awful. Change it. We'll just name her Cola. I think it's pretty nice. With a kind and fatherly smile, Meng Lei teased the little fellow. All right, as long as you like it. Dodola curled its lip in disdain, too lazy to rebut him. Hungry. The little fallen angel, no. Little Cola sucked on her fingers and gazed at Meng Lei helplessly as if she was saying, "I'm hungry. I want to eat." Meng Lei quickly asked, "Dodola, what do I feed a newly born fallen angel?" Fallen angels typically kill one another and feed on other little devils or fellow fallen angels when they are born, Dodola replied. So, her dietary needs are very simple. Other little devils or fellow fallen angels. Where am I supposed to find other little devils? Meng Lei was rather lost for words. Shouldn't a young child like this be drinking milk instead? Milk! Dodola rolled its eyes. Take a good look. That's no human child but a fallen angel instead. Milk? To think you can come up with something like that. As it spoke, Dodola made a casual grabbing motion and caught a pitch-black blood wolf from the forest a far distance away before decapitating it. At the sight, little Cola flew right out of Meng Lei's arms and pounced toward the blood wolf's neck. Then, she began to gulp down its blood. Meng Lei was dumbfounded. Don't make a fuss over nothing. Dodola snorted and said, if you have the opportunity, you can go to the Devil Island in the Demon Realm and take a look. Now, that's what you really call brutal. A billion devils breaking out of their shells at the same time, killing, devouring, and feeding on one another. The strong live on while the weak die. An elimination of the weak and the survival of the fittest. In just a short half a month's time, 90% of the little devils would perish in the hands of their own kind. Only an extremely small handful are truly able to survive and leave the Devil Island. Now, that's what you really call brutal. So, don't you underestimate that little fellow. The habits and nature of a devil lurk deep in her. Fallen angels are indeed unlike humans. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Little Cola might look like a tiny little bean, but she possessed an astonishingly large appetite. After drinking the blood wolf dry, she began to rip its carcass apart with her teeth. In under 15 minutes, she had thoroughly devoured the blood wolf, leaving behind only a floor of bones. Yet she still wasn't full. She circled around Meng Lei persistently and demanded for food. Left with no other choice, Meng Lei could only catch another blood wolf for her, upon which she then started to feed on it happily again. Meng Lei, she can't go on like this. With a shake of its head, Dodola said, fallen angels need nutrition the most when they are born. She can't just eat dark elemental magical beasts all the time. It's detrimental to her growth. She has to eat devils. Devils are her true source of food. The thing is, where am I supposed to find devils for her? Meng Lei held his hands out helplessly as he chuckled wryly. Didn't I ask you to study Dead Souls magic and devil magic? Dodola reminded him. You can summon some devils for her to feed on. With your capabilities, isn't summoning a bunch of devils a piece of cake for you? I do know some Dead Souls magic, but all I managed to summon were some skulls and skeleton soldiers. Meng Lei was lost for words. Are you sure she'll eat those skeletons that only have their bones remaining? As for devil magic, I've never even heard of that. It's become a lost art since a long time ago. You moron. Devil magic is just like Dead Souls magic. They're both magic that summons beings. Dodola was rendered somewhat speechless. Dead Souls magic summons dead spirits and the undead, whereas devil magic summons abyss demons and the fallen demons. Aside from summoning different targets, the rest are all the same. You'll be able to find the similarities between the two with just a bit of casual research. Is it that easy? I'll give it a go. Meng Lei left the Tower of Time, and then he activated his transfer ability and teleported Bahamon, who was a far distance off in Dragon God Empire. Over. Are you looking for me, Master? Bahamon was rather confused. Wasn't I in Dragon God Empire? Why am I here? Teach me the ways of Dead Souls magic. Meng Lei requested. Are you really picking up Dead Souls magic, Master? Bahamon was overjoyed. At last, he had met someone of his own kind. That really wasn't easy. He launched into an unceasing torrent of words right away. Through the use of their spiritual power, Dead Souls magicians would connect to the Dead Souls plane and build a Dead Souls channel, through which they would then summon spirits of the dead and undead beings to battle. There were 3 main points: connecting to the Dead Souls plane, building the Dead Souls channel, summoning the spirits of the dead and undead beings. The first point is the most important one. It is representative of whether a beginner possesses a magic talent for Dead Souls magic or not. A smiling Pahaman said, "Not even 1 in 10,000 can connect to the Dead Souls plane. They're even rarer than geniuses who have magic talent for the 10 different elements. This is also the reason why Dead Souls magic is gradually becoming a lost art. But don't you worry, Master. Even if you don't have magic talent for Dead Souls magic, I can let you connect to the Dead Souls plane all the same." Pahaman connected to the Dead Souls plane in the unseen world, as he explained. A short while later, a pitch-black dimensional vortex appeared out of nowhere. It gave off a strong aura of death, as well as that of spirits of the dead. "Master, the Dead Souls plane that I've connected to is Hell, which is one of the 3 major high-end devil planes. You can mark the place with your divine spirit. This way, you can connect directly to Hell by following the divine spirit mark in the future," said Pahaman with his finger pointed at the Dead Souls channel. "I'll give it a go." Meng Lei directed the power of his divine spirit through the Dead Souls channel, and then he sent a divine spirit mark into Hell and concealed it. With his half-deity divine spirit, the divine spirit marks he made were nearly eternal and indestructible. As long as nothing unexpected happened, it could stay in Hell for eternity. This meant that he could use the divine spirit mark to connect to Hell anytime he wanted to. "Try it again, Master," Pahaman said after he closed the Dead Souls channel. Meng Lei closed his eyes. Then, with the divine spirit mark as a bridge, he indeed managed to easily sense the presence of Hell. The first step is complete. Next, we'll build the Dead Souls channel. This is no problem for Master at all because it's a test of the Dead Souls magician's spiritual power. Pahaman then gave Meng Lei a brief explanation about the main points of building a Dead Souls channel. Meng Lei had a strong and powerful divine spirit, so he successfully built a Dead Souls channel right on the first try. The third step is to summon the undead. Summoning is typically separated into 2 types, compelled summoning and contractual summoning. Pahaman explained, as long as your spiritual power is powerful enough, you'll be able to forcibly summon undead beings who are weaker than yourself and make them battle for you. The legions of undead that were summoned during the large-scale war had exactly been summoned through compelled summoning. Meng Lei nodded slightly to that. The second type is contractual summoning. If your spiritual power is too weak, or if you wish to summon powerful undead beings yet are unable to forcibly do so, you'll need to send your subconsciousness to the Dead Souls plane and enter a contract with those powerful undead beings. I once had an undead skeletal dragon that was a half-deity. It was exactly through a contract that I had managed to summon it over here to help in the battle. Pahaman looked at Meng Lei and said, "Master, you have a powerful divine spirit, so summoning undead beings weaker than a half-deity shouldn't be a problem for you at all. As for the half-deities, you'll probably need to make a contract with them for it to work. I'll try the compelled summoning first." Meng Lei didn't go right into summoning powerful undead beings. After all, the reason why he was learning Dead Souls magic was only that he wanted to use it as a stepping stone to study devil magic, so what was he supposed to summon such strong undead beings for? Then, he built the Dead Souls channel and forcibly summoned the undead. Thud! A 2-meter-tall skeleton with a bone saber in its hand walked out of the Dead Souls channel. It gave off a strong aura of death, and a ball of will-o'-the-wisp blazed quietly in its skull. "You're really too impressive, Master. This is merely your first time summoning, yet you've managed to summon a 5th-grade skeleton general. This is practically unprecedented in history and will never be again seen in the future. My feelings of admiration toward Master are endless and eternal like the gushing rivers. They are like the overflowing Yellow River, beyond control once the floodgates open." Astonishment and wonder filled Pahaman's eyes as he sucked up to Meng Lei fervently. 5th grade. Meng Lei was rather embarrassed. He couldn't resist glancing at his half-deity subordinates, upon which he discovered that all of them had rather strange looks on their faces and were trying to hold back their laughter. Cough, cough. Meng Lei let out a few coughs of embarrassment. Then, he paid those guys no further heed and continued to summon the undead. A 6th-grade Hell Mirage Fox, an 8th-grade Demonic Ram General, a Saint Domain-level Hellhound. Meng Lei's comprehension of Dead Souls magic deepened further and further. After summoning a limits-level Saint Domain undead skeletal dragon, he finally stopped his dead soul's magic experiments. It was sufficient by this point. Then, Meng Lei moved ahead and delved into the main topic. He asked, Pahaman, are you familiar with devil magic? Devil magic? Pahaman was slightly taken aback. He replied, although devil magic is identical to dead soul's magic, and are both classified as summoning magic, I really am not familiar with it. I'd like to summon a devil. Meng Lei said aloofly, the existential planes that devils live in are probably the demon realm and the abyss, right? Do you have any means of connecting me to the demon realm or the abyss? Pahaman replied with a troubled smile, Master, I've also studied devil magic in the past before, but unfortunately, I don't have the talent for it. Meng Lei was rather disappointed to hear that. He asked, in that case, I can only slowly open up my senses and see if I have any talent for cultivating devil magic? That seems like the only way, replied Pahaman with a wry smile. All right, I'll give it a go then. Meng Lei had only just gotten ready to open up his senses when the spider goddess, who had been watching detachedly from the sidelines, suddenly spoke up. She asked, are you that interested in devil magic? Somewhat, I guess. Meng Lei cast a glance at her. The spider goddess was somewhat disappointed. Nevertheless, she said, if you can set me free, I have the means to let you connect to the demon realm and leave a divine spirit mark there. Really? Meng Lei raised an eyebrow. Of course. The spider goddess gave him a confident smile. Meng Lei couldn't help but chuckle, as expected of an ancient spirit that had lived for 50,000 years. Although her combat prowess was merely mediocre, she was well-read, experienced, and knowledgeable. She wasn't just a good-for-nothing. All right, say it. If you tell me the solution, I can overlook your sin of bargaining just now, said Meng Lei dispassionately. You! The spider goddess was livid. Can you be any more shameless? Mind your status, Rose. Meng Lei gave an icy snort before he said, you're my servant now. Everything you own, including your experience, knowledge, and so on, belongs to me, and this includes your loyalty as well. To think a servant like you actually dares to bargain with me, your master. You're pretty full of yourself. Arg! The spider goddess was close to going crazy. If it were possible, she really wished she could smash Meng Lei's head into smithereens with a hammer. He was simply too wicked, too hateful, and too goddamn infuriating. I, Rose, must have been blind. Why did I submit to someone like you? The spider goddess flung a sheepskin parchment before turning her back to him. She didn't want to see that face of Meng Lei's at all right now. Meng Lei caught the parchment and asked curiously, what's this? A devil contract. With a muffled grunt, the spider goddess said, as long as you sign that devil contract, you'll be able to summon devils all the way from the demon realm. You can then take the opportunity to leave your divine spirit mark in the demon realm, and that would do. A devil contract? Meng Lei stared at the parchment manuscript. Strange-looking text, as though messy, illegible drawings were written on it. He couldn't read them at all. He asked, can you read this, Pahaman? Pahaman shook his head and replied, Master, these words are written in the devil language. I can't read them either. What about the rest of you? Meng Lei then turned to the others. The rest of the half-deities also shook their heads. Take a look at this for me, Dodola. Meng Lei went into the Tower of Time. What's this? Dodola reached out and took the parchment manuscript from him. This is a devil contract. And not just that, it's even a master-servant devil contract. Where did you get this? A master-servant devil contract? A jolt went through Meng Lei as he asked, what do you mean by that? You know, a master-servant contract's a master contract servant. Once you sign this contract, you'll become the devil's servant, upon which you'll then gain part of its power. It's tantamount to selling your soul to the devil in exchange for power. With a shake of its head, a laughing Dodola scoffed. I didn't think that those devil's ways were still this inferior and immature. Can't they come up with something new instead? Selling your soul? A cold glint flashed past Meng Lei's eyes, and he disappeared from the Tower of Time. Rose, Do you know the content of this devil contract? The spider goddess shuddered fiercely as she stammered. And no, I don't. All I know is that this is a devil contract. I don't know the content at all. How dare you lie again? Meng Lei abruptly flung out the god-slaying spear with a cold snort, which instantly pierced through the spider goddess' chest and nailed her down onto the ground. This sudden turn of events stunned everyone. In a daze, all the half-deity subordinates stared at Meng Lei, whose visage was cold and frosty, before subsequently turning to the spider goddess who had been nailed to the ground. Their brains had short-circuited somewhat. What kind of situation was this? Why had they suddenly come to blows for no reason? What are you doing? Blood spurted out of the spider goddess' mouth as she glared at Meng Lei furiously. If you dare to do this again, the god-slaying spear won't be piercing through your chest anymore, but your head. Meng Lei let out an icy snort. Then, to Pahaman, he ordered, "Get me a dark fairy." "Yes, master." Despite his puzzlement, Pahaman didn't dare to probe. Soon he brought him a dark fairy. Meng Lei released the power of his divine spirit, took control of the dark fairy, and then made him sign the devil contract. The moment the contract took effect, the parchment manuscript carrying the devil contract self-immolated and turned into a devil mark, which landed in between the dark fairy's brows. Practically at the same time, a cloud of incredibly thick and dense blood-red mist descended from the skies and converged to form the hologram of a devil with spikes on its back, and whose body was a blood-red color throughout. An evil, bloodthirsty, and savage aura emanated from the devil hologram. Though not very strong, it nevertheless still greatly discomforted all the half-deities present. Devils, deities, they were natural enemies. Who was it that summoned the great Bloodseeker? Lord Barry Adrian Edmund Ives Harlow Disraeli Esmond Collins? The devil hologram spoke in a low, deep, and drawn-out voice. Then, its gaze fell onto the dark fairy kneeling on the ground, and it yawned. "My lowly servant, was it you that summoned the great Bloodseeker, Lord Barry?" The dark fairy had long since wet himself from fear. Where was he supposed to find the courage to answer the devil's inquiry? However, not only was the devil hologram not displeased, but it was even highly satisfied with the dark fairy's reaction. "My lowly servant, as long as you listen to Lord Barry obediently, Lord Barry will bestow upon you great power and eternal life." Humph! A cold snort reached the devil at this point. Slightly taken aback, the devil hologram turned around, rather displeased, upon which it was then scared witless. Even its voice was trembling somewhat as it exclaimed, half-deities! How dare a puny little Saint Domain devil make up such hocus-pocus here?" Meng Lei snorted and said, "Get lost!" Yes, yes. The devil hologram vanished without a trace right away, lest it was a step too slow and ended up being killed by Meng Lei. Pahaman came right up to them. As he stared at the devil mark in between the dark fairy's brows, a somewhat skeptical Pahaman asked, "Was that a master-servant contract just now, master?" "Yeep." Meng Lei nodded slightly. "That goddamn *re. How dare she harbor thoughts of harming master? This is unforgivable." Pahaman flew into a rage. "Master, what's the point of leaving a bane like her alive? Why don't you bestow her upon me and let me turn her into an undead knight? You can deal with her any way you want if you can kill her," replied Meng Lei aloofly. "Ha! Ha ha!" Pahaman cast a glance at the spider goddess before he gave an embarrassed smile. "I was just joking. Just joking. Wussy."